Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, September 11th, 2017. To start us off, I'd ask the clerk to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask that you please stay standing. And 16 years ago today, September 11th, was a tragic day in our country's history. So I'd just like to take a moment to do a moment of silence for all those that were lost, specifically the 206 souls from Massachusetts that were lost on September 11th, 2001. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, Monday, September 11th, 2017. We've got, I think, a pretty busy agenda here tonight. We've got, we will read the mail, then we'll do some appointments, some new patrol officers. We'll have an opportunity for public input. If you do have anything to say as a member of the public, just ask that you raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and any comments that you do have would be through the chair. Then we'll have an opportunity for member updates. And then we're going to go into a special town meeting. We're going to insert articles into the special town meeting. We've got a number of articles to insert. We'll read through them all right now. We've, let's see, 10 or so to insert tonight into the warrant. This is our last opportunity to insert, our last posted meeting with which we could insert articles into the warrant for our October town meeting. Next on our agenda is town administrator and assistant town administrator updates. Project updates will go over the town office space needs study, the fields needs assessment, and we'll get an update on Alumni Field renovations that are going on down the other side of the hill. Then we'll have an opportunity for minutes approval, and after that we'll adjourn. So, moving right along, Mr. Bergman, if you could take us through the mail.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. A few items in your mail packet. One is a letter from the Attorney General approving 3 of the bylaws that were passed at the May 1st annual town meeting. One was the zoning amendment on accessory apartments. The other 2 were town bylaws, one for town meeting procedures and the other for establishing departmental revolving funds. As the letter indicates, and as we'll get into in further discussion later, that the AG has yet to act on the zoning amendment, which sought to enact a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana. The question that's being reviewed right now is whether, since a 2/3 vote is required, they're reviewing the procedure. Since there was no counted vote, I forget if it was 1 or 2 in the morning when that one came up, but in any event, where it was a voice vote, not a counted vote, it may not get approved in that form. So we met with the planning. We'll get into it more with the next one, but the planning board has a substitute article to bring to the fall town meeting. Also, there is I put in there a schedule of a conference is coming up next Monday, Implementing Best Practices, it's a statewide conference. The Lieutenant Governor is the keynoter, and I'm on a panel on housing. I've been on several panels on housing, and actually when I was working on the PowerPoint over the weekend, I'm happy to be able to update the information with the adoption of a master plan and with some very clear goals for housing that we are pursuing. When you look at the top 5 goals, we've already got 4 of them, underway. So good for us. Also, I sent out on Friday. We got late notice of a further grant award to the Crosstown Connect Transportation Management Association of another $101,000 from MassDOT. This is not the first year, but it may be the second or third year when such funds have come to Crosstown Connect. MassDOT really appreciates a regional approach to transportation, and we're the beneficiary of that. We have our COA dispatch services done through Crosstown Connect. Great to get a $60,000 grant to go towards that bottom line. The shuttle service is $41,000 in a new grant. We're benefiting from $20,000 in an old grant for the shuttle service that we're launching, so it really works out well, and I'm happy we're on their radar screen. So that's it.
Great. We actually did, in hard copy tonight, we did receive a copy from the Smiths from Elm Road. So there was a tree, right? Elm Road, just giving us an update, just letting us know that they do have, they're making progress on their plans to expand their septic. So that can be included as well if we could. All right, thank you, Mr. Bergman. All right, next up, a little behind schedule, but kind of an important part of our public service. I ask the Deputy Chief, if you would, please come forward, Deputy Chief Patterson. We've got a couple of patrol officers, but do a little bit of an interview and hopefully an appointment. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a seat, be comfortable.
Evening. As you know, we started a process back in June to hire 2 new officers. Actually, we started out hiring 3 because we had 2 that were going to the state police. One has since rescinded his resignation, and it came back to us to stay working for us, so that worked out in our favor. So we did the process by sending out, HR sent out the notification for the openings. We had approximately 50 resumes come in. We whittled that down through the process with HR, ended up interviewing 8 candidates, and then made the determination to offer positions to Eric Michelle and Jared Richard. They are before you now, and we were asking that you appoint Eric Michelle of Shirley for patrol position. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Graduated from the Reading Full-Time Academy in 2004 and has 9 years prior experience with Northborough Police Department. He took some time off and went down to Hawaii to live.
Work.
And work. But you can certainly quiz him on that.
Poipu Bay, I hate playing that course.
So I don't know if you'd like to take and ask him questions first, or you want me to go on with Jerry?
Yeah, let's go one at a time. It's a pleasure of the board? Sure. Mr. Lady, you want to start us off?
Sure, we do have your resume here, and there's no suspense as far as competition goes, but I think in the interest of the informing the town a little about yourself, I wonder if you might speak a little bit about yourself in terms of what interests you in police work, what your particular expertise are, areas that you want to continue to learn and grow, into, and things that you can add to the department that we may not have, or what do you bring to the table?
Sure. My interest in police work began as a child. I had an uncle who was a policeman in a local town, the town of Tewksbury. So from a young age, I had an impression, formed in my mind of the job. You know what I mean? He talked a lot about it, and it just every little kid goes through that phase. I want to be a superhero or a policeman or a fireman, and it just stuck. You know what I mean? From a young age, and then my father, growing up, worked for Digital. A lot of you know Digital, obviously, being from this area. Digital went away, and he had dedicated his life to that company, and to watch him lose his job at that point, he bounced back, but watching him go through that was kind of heartbreaking, you know what I mean? And I just said, it's risky to work in the private sector, and my love of public service, it just kind of led me to this job. My interests in law enforcement were, throughout my career, were always I love investigations, I love talking to people, I love interacting with the community in any capacity, whether it's an outreach event or a traffic stop or a call. Oftentimes we see people at their worst, and if you can make someone smile or comfort somebody, that's the best thing, the best feeling. So that's what I hope to bring to Littleton here, and it's just something that I've always enjoyed, public service.
Okay. Is there an area, if you had an opportunity for further education or training, that you particularly like to expand your knowledge base?
Absolutely, yeah. I've always been interested in detective work. I did go to the detective training program. Somewhere down the road, I hopefully will get a shot to use those skills that I developed over the 9 years I worked. So that's definitely something I'm interested in. And obviously, leadership. At some point in my career, I'd like to make rank and move up from there.
Great. Okay, I'll leave questions for the others.
Ms. Napoli?
You somewhat answered. My question to you was going to be, what skills do you utilize to form and maintain personal relationships with members of the public?
Yeah, just just being honest and straightforward with everybody. Make my intentions clear. I mean, I'm a representative of the police department, and I represent everybody that puts on a uniform every day. So to me, that's the most important thing. Is to be an ambassador for law enforcement, and everybody, they call the police and expect order and such, and to be able to provide that is important to me. But just to do the best job I can out there.
Excellent, thank you.
So when we're looking for new staff and police officers, we're obviously looking for the right cultural fit, but we assume that the candidates are looking for the right cultural fit too. So why Littleton from your end? What's attractive, what's challenging here that you think will keep you interested, but also what do you like about it?
Yeah, I grew up in the city of Lowell. I enjoy, and the neighborhood I grew up in was a small neighborhood, very similar to Littleton, you know what I mean? And I moved out to Groton when I started with Northborough, and the town of Northborough is very similar in size and makeup as Littleton. And Littleton's a growing town. I feel it's a good fit for me. I grew up not far from here. My family is right in Shirley. And it's sort of like coming home, I never wanted to, I didn't even know what Northborough was when I applied down there, because, growing up where I grew up, you always go north. You never really go south on 495, you know what I mean? Unless you go to the Cape, and I didn't go to the Cape as kids. So it feels like home to me, it does. It feels like a homecoming, and I'm just looking forward to working with you all and the men and women of the Littleton Police Department.
Thank you. Mr. Knox?
How old is the baby?
7 months.
Important stuff.
How important do you think it is that the local police officers are involved with the town, the community policing, or getting out of the cruiser? Do you think that's an important feature of being a police officer?
Absolutely. The way things are in the world today, there's a lot of negative publicity on police, you know what I mean? And a lot of that comes from the disconnect between maybe law enforcement and the community. I think that, in the research I've done and the folks I've talked to at the Littleton Police Department, they're very well connected in the community, which is something I feel is immensely important. Because once you lose that trust of the public, it's very difficult to do your job. And maintaining that and fostering more relationships with the public is I think the most important part of the patrolman's job, because you're the one out on the road all the time. So to be an ambassador for the department is the most important thing, and public trust is key to getting all that stuff done.
I'm glad to hear that. I think that's how a lot of people feel. We have something in the town called Third Thursday, and I took some photographs of our local police officers being involved with the public. And sometimes when you put something on the Facebook page, on your Selectmen's page, I get 288 looks. They had over 4,700 looks.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's how important I think it is to people, too.
Absolutely.
Looks or likes?
Likes. It's almost the same.
He's the senior member of the board.
Every meeting.
Every meeting, without fail.
Next meeting is gonna be in Anthony's seat.
He keeps moving away from me. Mr. Knox used to sit here, but he's trying to get further and further away from me. My kids actually said to me tonight, you gonna be nice to Mr. Knox tonight? I would just say, welcome to Littleton, first of all. And hopefully you guys are relaxed and take a breath, because we're just 5 people from the town that love the town and are trying to do our best to provide the best for everybody in Littleton. That's the same thing that we expect of our law enforcement and all of our public safety officers. The one thing to that end that I would ask you, because these guys pretty much stole every question that I had, but what would qualify you as a professional in this profession of law enforcement? So what do you think is the one qualification that you feel makes you a professional at law enforcement?
Just a passion for the job, the knowledge to do the job, the patience, the ability to interact with the public, all those things that, I'm not going to say they come easy to me because I was always a shy kid growing up, but I think I took all that time to observe, and you know, sometimes you can learn a lot by not speaking right away, and I just think I've developed those skills over time, and I think I'm just glad to be here and get right back into it, you know, and utilize all those.
Great. All right. Thanks, Eric. You guys want to hear from Jared first and then move forward, or go through the
Yeah.
interview process first and then?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Deputy?
Again, we ask that you appoint Jared Richard of Fitchburg as a patrol officer for the town of Littleton. Mr. Richard holds an associate's degree in criminal justice from Mount Wachusett Community College. He graduated from the Methuen Police Academy in July. He actually attended it with one of our officers, Jesse Bowen. He comes very highly recommended from the academy director. And we ask that you give him an appointment.
It's kind of like Shirley's our farm team, huh? Mind if we reverse it? Come back this way?
Since you mentioned Shirley, you dispatched her there for a whole year?
Yes, sir.
So you were there during some turbulent times, was that, I don't know, maybe not turbulent, but as far as removal of the chief?
It's more than fair to say yes.
What I'm leading into is that, how involved do you think a board of selectmen should be with the day-to-day activities of the police force?
Not as involved.
That's all I wanted to hear. My other question is the same about community policing. What are your thoughts on that, getting out in the community?
I believe that's what police work is all about. You have good relationship with members of the community, you know, that's proactive work. If somebody sees something or, you know, you're investigating a crime, you know, people are more apt to come and talk to you if you're open and available. Growing up in Fitchburg, I didn't really have the opportunity to interact with the city cops. They just kind of, they're out and about doing their thing, going from call to call to call. I always wanted to interact with the police. It was always been an interest of mine. We just didn't have that opportunity. So stepping into the role of a full-time patrolman, I would like to be open to the public. And, you know, one of the things I did do in Shirley, and it was posted on their Facebook page, I know you were talking about the Littleton Police Facebook, I saw two children playing on the side of the road. They had their little RC car things, you know, the battery-powered cars. And one of them was actually a police car, and he was chasing his friend in a little John Deere. So I'm like, okay, I was in my cruiser, I swung around, and I pulled over, and I let the kids, you know, climb in the car and turn on the lights, and the parents came out, and they thought that was the best thing in the world. And I wish I had that opportunity back when I was a young kid, so I plan on keeping that up.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirby?
So I imagine right out of the police academy, it's hard to set yourself apart, establish yourself as being, particularly in the interview process, as the candidate for the job because you have a more limited work history. What do you think sets yourself apart for a job like this compared to some of your peers that you just recently graduated with?
I do have a little bit of background. I did start dispatching when I was 18 years old. And that was in the town of Princeton. From there on, I went to the town of Sterling. And so I have a little bit of background and knowledge of how different departments are and what being a police officer is all about from many different points of view. I would say things I developed, skills I learned, my integrity, my passion for the work, very driven to achieve my goals.
Thank you.
Excellent. I don't have any questions. You've answered all my questions so far, so thank you.
I've been left with the, thanks to my colleagues here, with the same question I had asked Eric, so I'll ask it as you, of you as well, Jared. Is there an area within police work that you're particularly passionate about, and given the opportunity for further training or education, what would you like to focus on?
Specifically, one of the things that caught my attention about Littleton was the fact that the police department has a canine unit. I'm passionate about animals, and I've always had an interest in canine work. So if that opportunity became available someday, I would definitely do everything I could to pursue that. Other than that, I'm just starting my career, so I would like to explore as many different avenues as I can. Whatever training is available, I would like to attend and maybe pick up something else that I didn't really know that I'd be interested in.
Puppies is always a good answer. Thank you.
All right, Jared, again, we all have similar questions. And I'll just reiterate the fact that, we're just trying to do the best for the town. So appreciate you guys coming out and answering the questions honestly, and giving people an opportunity to kind of get to see you guys, meet you guys, through the television. But also gives us an opportunity to see you guys, meet you guys, so that if you see us at Market Basket or on the street or what have you, or at Donovan's or wherever, pick up the kids at school or something like that, you'll recognize a face hopefully, and feel comfort in that. So, Jared, just pretty much the same question I asked of Eric, just the one quality, and you probably already answered this, but the one quality that you feel will help you to either be or become a professional in law enforcement, because it is your profession. You've chosen this as a profession, so.
One quality that I have.
Yeah, just something that you bring to the table that will help you to be a professional law enforcement officer.
My integrity, always doing the right thing all the time.
Okay, great. And as far as professional goes, to follow up Mr. Glavy's question, you had mentioned puppies, canine, and you want to, get as much as you can out of the job and learn different avenues that you may be interested in. Do you have currently any professional goals, personal goals? Are you looking, maybe at state police, FBI, anything like that ultimately you'd like to try to ascertain?
Actually, I've stressed this all throughout the process. Littleton was my #1 choice. I was in the academy alongside Officer Bowen, and the support that he received from the department going through, the reputation that Littleton Police Department holds. I plan on staying here for my career, and as far as personal goals, I'm not 100% satisfied with just my associate's degree. I'd like to further my education, get my bachelor's, and maybe someday work my way up the ranks.
Question above and beyond what I asked, but excellent answer. Appreciate it. Yeah, great. I'm personally, I'm very satisfied with the, to go from 50 candidates down to 8 interviews, quite a process for the administration at the department, and for you guys to come out and to come out on top. Kudos to both of you. Unless there's any further discussion, I'd entertain a
I have
motion.
one question for Deputy Patterson, and not relevant to the two folks before us tonight, but 50 applicants, 8 interviews suggests to me a good pool. Were you satisfied that we had a good pool, or are there things we need to be concerned about?
I think as far as the pool and the applicants we brought in, they were all very good. We used to see a lot larger numbers when a police job came up. We used to get applicants of 100, 120, so the numbers are down. But since we were putting out and looking for already academy trained and everything else. I think we had a very good selection of people to choose from,
Yeah, we're getting pickier.
Right.
We want academy trained.
which is what it comes down to.
Right.
And I think as we demonstrate here, we have somebody with 9 years' experience that's gonna bring in, you know, his background and everything else from a different department that we can take a look at and see how things are done elsewhere and try and incorporate different things. And then we have somebody just starting his career that's eager to go and eager to be a part of our town. And I think it's gonna work out really well for us.
Awesome. You do realize Long Lake's a little bit different than the Poly Coast.
It's all perspective.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Demonstrated, obviously, to the department, and I think to each of us, that you're both very quality stand-up individuals, and I think, well, I'll welcome a motion at this time.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, subsection 97A, to appoint Eric Michael of Shirley, Mass. and Jared Richard of Fitchburg, Mass. as patrol officers for the Littleton Police Department.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is it Michael and Michelle? That's French, come on, man. Just let the record show. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Good to have you.
Congratulations.
Welcome and good luck. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Deputy. Officers, thank you for coming out, support of your brothers.
Deputy, you gotta get that chief to work on his letterhead, though. Madam Chair and members?
I wasn't gonna point that out.
I thought you were just mad at me.
I was gonna let the chair handle that.
It's not the first time he's called me madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. I'm looking for three. Public input.
I was,
And to the families, congratulations and welcome to you to Littleton. Just give a minute for the room to clear. But at this time, we will welcome any public input, so anybody that would like to be recognized, or if you have anything that's on your mind and you want to bring it before the board, just ask that you raise your hand, be recognized, and announce yourself and your address.
Ms. Peccorni.
Erica Bugorny, Fox Lane. A couple things. So some of the town meeting recommendations I saw came out. So the one about time limits on speaking, which I actually think is a pretty good idea. I was just wondering about the only being able to speak once if, say, new information, you know, in the process of the speaking, new information comes to light and someone has a follow-up question. How would that be handled?
Yeah, I think it does somewhat address it, but Mr. Knox, I think.
If I could, I've been in contact with the town moderator and the town clerk. What you see today is a possibility. I think a lot of it is to show the public that we're actively pursuing ways of making town meeting go more smoothly. What you see today might change at our meeting. Matter of fact, the moderator has something that he has suggested to me that I'll explain later on in the meeting, but one of his ideas is he likes everything that's there, but for this one meeting, it being a town moderator, he has the right himself, and he gave him the chapter and verse to set time limits. So he was thinking of setting something up, this one, almost like a trial, and not vote on this, so we can have more discussion with the public over the next 7 to 8 months until the next meeting. So some of that things that you're talking about are things we want to hear. We want to get that information in. And the town clerk is putting something on the website.
Survey.
Yeah, that Chase has worked on this too. So you can do a survey on there and give your ideas to certain things going to happen. But I think for the most part, we'll discuss it later on in this meeting. We might put it on, we might pull it, we might take one part of it, take the whole thing. But we all know that we don't want to be there 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. So whatever way we can do it, we'll do our best and let the public have the input in it because it's your town meeting. but it's just a start, so we're not, the exact thing you brought up has been brought up also, you know. If something else pops up, I would like the chance to get up and speak again, so we're gonna try to iron that all out.
And also, I had sent a letter to the board after the last meeting, just about the suggestion to the library fundraisers that they follow open meeting laws. And I just want to reiterate that I really think that is not a fair request to put on them. I don't, as far as I know, no other fundraising committee has ever been asked to do that. And it's a group of citizens who are just trying to raise money for the town to help this project. And really, it's from what I'm not a part of it, so I'm speaking as a citizen. But from what I understand, you know, it's very informal. They, you know, someone texts and says, you know, can we do this or can we do that, or I had an idea about this. And that would really, I think, tie their hands in order to have to do that. And I don't know that that's been a requirement
So
on anything
I'll,
else.
I'll address that because I was the one that made that suggestion. I urged them to do that. And the reason I urged them to do that is because they had a meeting, I attended it, and there were 3 library trustees at the meeting. So if it wasn't posted. So I, rather than them getting tripped up, I just thought it would be a good policy to follow on their behalf. I understand, I think Ms. Davis was here, and she said, you know, sometimes she'll have a meeting in her kitchen, or, you know, and it's that informal, which I totally get, and that's where, you know, a lot of good stuff happens at those little, you know, at the coffee shop or at someone's kitchen table. But if there are gonna be trustees, or there are going to be elected officials involved in that process, they're just setting themselves up for the possibility of some problems, whether it be ethics issues or open meeting law violations. And it just, all those people are trying to do something good for the benefit of the community, and to have that tripped up because they didn't post a meeting or something like that, I thought would be devastating for each of them, because those people are volunteering their time, and they're, you know, they're not elected, they're not appointed, they're just stepping up and trying to make things happen. So that's on me. So, and I apologize, did I reply to you? I don't recall getting the letter, so I apologize. I think I typically will give you at least some sort of reply, so I'll go back through and find out, and I apologize for not getting back to you, because I do
Chairman?
like to get back.
Actually, I do remember the letter because it started off and glowing praise for other things we've done that evening. So
Did you call me Madam Chairman, like a police chief? Maybe that's why.
I do want to reference, there is, you know, if there's any suggestion that this is, you know, an isolated or targeted effort, Mr. Knox, remember, he was very much involved with the Littleton 300, another case where there was a merging of private and public efforts, and they made the conscious decision, I believe, that the fundraising for that, which was largely private, those were all at posted meetings too. I think it's, you know, at the discretion of the folks doing the fundraising, but I think there's enough blurred lines between town boards and private efforts that I still think it's a suggestion that ought to be considered.
But on the other hand, too, going back to the 300, there was so many times that 2 or 3 of us would meet, and we didn't post anything for that reason, because we had to meet at my office, and we had to interview someone to try to have a sponsorship. So some of that, I understand where you're coming from.
Right, but there were follow-up meetings that were public, so that everything
Yep.
was.
Discussed and voted on, yeah.
And we would clearly run afoul of public meeting laws if we had a majority of library trustees there.
Right.
So I think
And they know
that's
those-
the biggest
right?
concern is,
So the library trustees know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, so I would assume that they would follow those guidelines.
Right, right. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Apologize for not getting back to you. I'll try to be better about it. You had a few things. That's the few? Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard?
Yeah, I would suggest, at least on the open meeting law, there are a lot of elements of the open
Excuse me,
meeting
sir,
law
who are
that go
you?
beyond posting meetings. You could just ensure that they post
Brad,
meetings.
just announce yourself, if you would.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brad Mitchell, 1 Wilderness Road.
Thank you.
So part of the open meeting law, if you're trading emails, you're not supposed to trade emails with more than a quorum of the group. Things that can be quite limiting for basically a small volunteer committee. Posting makes sense so people can show up, I get that. So you don't have to, my suggestion is to consider maybe not limiting them to the entire open meeting law, but the portions of it that are really important.
Yeah, we have no purview, it's not our jurisdiction
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it was just, we urged them just so that it wouldn't, we wouldn't run afoul. We wouldn't have any issues, and there wouldn't be any black marks on the efforts of people that are volunteering and doing something to the benefit of the town. But thank you. Anybody else? Public input? Alex faked me out with his hand going up to fix his glasses. All right, so member updates. Mr. Glavy, do you mind if I start down this end?
Sure. Two areas that I think, well, one of which will come up in the context of, actually, both of these will come up in the context of the warrant articles, but since we last met, Chase and I had a chance to sit down and meet and go over the common topics we have, and that includes the farm management committee, which we're eager to meet with you guys as soon as we can get assembled, and I think Chase is also going to take the lead on the next steps on the sewer, meeting with Chris and the engineers and thinking about the public process a little more concretely now. The other topic on my plate that I know we've made progress on, and Mike Zeldin is here, is obviously that there's a warrant article now which addresses some of the next step funding for master plan implementation, and we've, we met with Bonnie on that to get guidance, and Keith, I know, has been very helpful with that, and we've dutifully gone around all the boards, that should have a say in that, our board here, the planning board, the finance committee, so it's, so far we've been receiving only encouragement, Mike, so now we're at the point of putting those words in before the voters and getting a little more funding. Although we actually have a little leftover funding, too, from the process.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Glavy. Ms. Napoli?
Hi, Mr. Chair. So Chase and I had a meeting to go over, get an update, reconnect on the opioid substance abuse crisis that we're facing. And we came up with some good ideas on how to move that forward. I did follow up with the People Against Substance Abuse organization, the community outreach group, that we're going to try to tie into what we're putting together for the town. So I'm scheduled to follow up with them this week and get an update on where they're at, because they were talking about a 1-800 number and things like that. And we are going to get some information out on the town website where people can access information through the Littleton Police Department or through this outreach organization. So we're looking forward to getting that together in the next coming weeks. So as far as my goals, that's really the only update that I do have. I do want to mention, I made lunch for the Council on Aging last week, and they are always looking for volunteers to make soup and sandwiches on Thursday, so I figured I'd just put out a reminder about that quickly. And also a new thing that someone had approached me at Third Thursday about was a gentleman came forward and said he was willing to pick up trash and bring it to the transfer station for any seniors who are unable to do so. Excuse me. So I spoke with Tina about it, and she said that she does have seniors that are in need of trash pickup assistance. So if anyone is out there and they're willing to help out some local seniors with that, they can contact Tina at Elder and Human Services directly. And that's all I have.
I would just caution the whole, have to have a sticker and the bags and the page you throw and all that kind of stuff. Just want to make sure that we're mindful of that as we,
Right.
because one of the reasons we went to the stickers and the page you throw is because one person in the neighborhood would buy a sticker and the pickup truck would come in with
Yeah,
trash from
I
the
don't
whole
know
neighborhood.
about that.
So,
They'll have to, yeah, they can work that out with Tina, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's on
I'm just
Tina's
putting it
lap
out
now.
there.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna have another
That's why
update.
we charge by the back now.
Correct, right.
It was used to be unlimited with your senior sticker.
Right.
It's my
right.
understanding that the seniors in need already have their own sticker, they're just unable to get there anymore.
Okay. All right,
So.
yeah, so that's certainly something we can look at on a larger scale to try to solve that
Right,
issue as well,
right.
but that's great as a fix for now.
Right.
Thanks.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
So piggybacking on what Cindy had said about our goal associated with opioid awareness and the opioid epidemic, the other component that we had talked about was drafting a letter from the Board of Selectmen to our state and federal representatives, essentially describing what we've seen in Littleton. And the ultimate conclusion really is that Littleton is unfortunately not immune from any of this. Certainly Cindy and I have encountered and spoke with a number of people who have been, if not themselves, impacted by opioids. They have a family member who has been. So what we wanted to do was send a letter to our state representatives essentially saying, Littleton's not unique, Littleton's not alone, and this is a regional, state, federal size problem. And to the extent that we can do things in Littleton, we certainly are, but we need your help as well to really emphasize that. So along those lines, I mean, it's very much a draft, and I think we can table it for now, but I'll distribute the draft that I put together. Cindy hasn't even seen it, I just did it this afternoon, so. Take a look at it in a couple of weeks, maybe we can consider some edits to it
Yeah.
and sending it off to our state and federal representatives, continuing to emphasize to them that we need a broader set of support mechanisms to address this.
Great. I think this is a really important goal of ours. And with any, just so the public knows, with whenever we set up a goal, we assign one or two champions, typically two champions, so that we're all accountable. All five of us are accountable to any of the goals that are on our goals. And we're doing them on behalf of the town, obviously, right? So, we have the two champions here who are obviously working tirelessly and making a lot of connections and making our community aware of this issue. And you mentioned, it's not just a little problem, it's also Littleton's not immune, right? So it's, we need to make sure that people are aware that it's happening in our community, folks, and it's unfortunate. The deputy chief, I'm sure, and the fire chief can say that it's happening in our community. They're seeing it, they're aware of it, they're making efforts to thwart it, but the more that we can spread the awareness and put pieces in place, the better off we'll be as a community. So-
And certainly this letter pulls from not just the work that Cindy and I have done, but the work that Jim and Melissa did with the PSA and everything. So we really tried to condense all of that and say, here's what we're doing as a community, but it's a much bigger issue
Yeah, absolutely
than
is,
what we
sure.
can deal with.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So
Good.
resources are
Yeah.
vital in that regard.
Nice.
The other selectman goal, Paul and I had talked about essentially putting Weston and Sampson, finding a time to probably have a conference call with Weston and Sampson, and since, the field is somewhat close to wrapping up, we were hoping Anthony might be willing to help us start to shepherd Weston and Sampson through that as well as Chris a little bit, and probably get a call on the books here fairly soon to get an update from them on where they're going and exactly what progress they've made, because we feel like we need to have our finger on the pulse of that pretty effectively. Right now,
You
it's
can't
been,
have them yet, but
yeah, but I want to start filling in his docket as soon as the field's done, so. So that was the major thing with,
You're in the on-deck circle,
yeah, exactly.
to use the wrong.
yeah, choke up.
And then, just in terms of community stuff, so on Sunday, I took my kids to a story hour at the Littleton Community Farm, and it was one of the most Littleton things that we have done. We're sitting out there by the farm, there must have been 100 people that walked up into Prouty and stuff on a perfect Sunday afternoon. We're sitting there by the farm, reading stories. It was perfect, so they did a fantastic job putting
That's cool.
that on. I actually see Christina's here, so.
That's off.
I was going to say that even if she wasn't here, for the record.
Yeah, he has it written down. Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Knox?
Just quickly, Chase and I are working on the town meeting issue, but I'll save that discussion when we get down to the
Warrant articles.
possible article. I see that Mr. Moderator is here also, so he can fill us in with what he had told me in the past. The other thing I want to point out, I was at a COA meeting today,
He's going to get a time limit.
at the Council of Aging meeting today, and they were discussing the important articles that are coming up at the We have the chairman of the planning board, and the chairman of the COA. They're both here today, tonight. And they wanted to point out that the seniors will be having an informative meetings to discuss these articles, warrant articles, on October 8th and 12th at 10:30 a.m. for seniors that can drop down and learn all about the articles, so they have an understanding exactly what they're there for, what the wording is, and so forth. So I want to get that note across so the seniors would know that the two opportunities to go learn more about these articles that we're going to discuss a little bit tonight, too.
Great. Thank you. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but the item number 3 on our agenda tonight says member updates. Doesn't necessarily say goal updates. We're all working towards the goals, right? And so we're all, communicating where we're at with the goals and that kind of thing. So I just don't want people to feel an obligation every time to let everybody know where we're at with the goals, because we're all moving forward. We're all making progress on our goals. But member updates historically has been, gives us an opportunity, like Joe went to the COA, and it's not specifically one of his goals, but he's just always done it, and he's always been a conduit for the board to the council. So it's kind of a constituency opportunity. Oftentimes, like, I happen to have, my son plays on the football team, and their home opener was in West Boylston Friday night, because Alumni Field was not ready yet. I blame Anthony. No, Anthony's been on, we wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for Anthony.
Which is late.
Which is,
I noticed Keith's over there just letting Anthony take the kids.
But the football team did win Friday night, albeit on a away field, double overtime. It was a fantastic win. But oftentimes it's stuff like that. There's when there's a fundraiser going on at whether it's a scout troop or any organization in town. Games are coming up, playoffs coming up. Just usually we'll give an update on what the records of the teams are and things like that. So it's. I just don't want people to feel, oh, geez, I got to give a goal update tonight. It's like, what have I done? What have I done in the last week or 2 weeks? So I know that everybody's working and heading in the right direction. I hope that the residents do as well.
If it starts to slip, Mr. Chairman, put it back on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's okay. I mean, during that time, if you have something that is worthy of updating us on, by all means. But a lot of the communication bounces back and forth, and it comes down from the administrative staff as well. So, and that is one thing I will say, is that if you do have any kind of questions or updates or anything, filter them up to Anthony and to Keith, because that way they will come back down to us, and they can disseminate it through the different the different department heads, and they can get questions answered for us and out to us. So the other thing, pulling it back into a goal, we had mentioned having a retreat or a summit or something of that nature, and it was something that I said that I would take the lead on. Keith and I have worked on this, and Anthony's had some input as well, where I'd like to ask if Mr. Glavy and I, as the vice chairman and chairman, if we could kind of plan this. And one of the dates that I was hoping for is next Monday. We don't have a meeting scheduled. I'd like to see if everybody's got availability next Monday, if we could do something. I think it would be beneficial for us to have a third party facilitate it for us. Not necessarily a huge agenda, just an open agenda. We won't take any votes on it, but it'll give us an opportunity to, in the future, I'd like to do it right after the election, so that we can, it almost serve as an orientation or a training for new members. Just in fairness to you guys kind of just got thrown to the wolves and said, come up to speed. So it just gives us an opportunity for the administrative team to meet us, for us to meet each other more personally, and just to, I don't necessarily call it a team-building exercise, although it may evolve into something like that down the road. But for this one, I'd like to try to do a retreat or a summit that, again, no votes will be taken, something that maybe Paul and I can put together.
I've got a thought right now, reading through the beacon here.
I thought you just were bored by me talking,
no,
so you
no.
pick something up to read.
It's caught my eye earlier, but now that you mention this, rather than, Well, why don't we take advantage of something that's right, or
Yeah,
we're
MMA?
being invited to. There's the Fall Conference Selectmen's Association, which is not far away, at Cyprian Keys Golf Club in Boylston on October 14th. Now, if we, are committed to doing a retreat, well, look, somebody else is already paying for the room, and we could go to that conference and have our own little session there, assuming the date works for everybody. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but, just a thought. It's already...
I definitely appreciate that. I know for a fact that I can't do it, I can't do it on the 14th. So, and that's something that certainly, we've bounced around a bunch of ideas, and there's a couple of former town administrators or town managers and some existing town administrators or town managers that have done this, that have gone to boards and facilitated these types of retreats or meetings. And it's good to have that third party there, because then they can say, well, other boards of selectmen do this, and we might get some ideas from that, and you're sure the best demonstrated practices and things like that. No deliberation, just spitballing, gives these guys an opportunity to tell us what their expectations are of us. We can share what our expectations are, back and forth. And, there's, again, no votes be taken, it'd just be an opportunity for us to get together, and I would prefer for it not to be on, frankly, in a town meeting room. I'd prefer for it to be in, not in a spa, but, maybe at the courtyard or something, in their
You wanna get a
conference
pedicure?
room. Yeah, no,
Madam Chair?
nobody touches my feet. That's a thing. That's petty, right? Okay. So if you guys are okay with it, just
I,
want to leave it to
I
us.
love the idea. Next Monday
Not a
is
good
my
idea.
wife's
Okay.
birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's the problem?
She shares me with you guys enough, so. Actually, that might be a good birthday present for her.
There you go. Yeah, you being out?
Yeah, right.
Take that.
Right. But if I can bring the kids, we're all set.
All right, so why don't we do this? If you guys are okay with leaving it in our hands, I'll loop Keith and Anthony in, and we'll float a couple of dates out there,
Okay.
rather than us deliberating it right now during the meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Good? All right, thank you. Just to update people we do have an update on the fields needs assessment and on Alumni Field, but just so the people know, if you drive by Alumni Field, it looks like it's ready, and why aren't we using it? The reason we're not using it is because it's not ready. The infield, the process of the synthetic turf is that many people may have seen the drone footage. The field is all leveled, and then there is crushed stone put down for drainage, and then there's a foam pad put down to increase the G-max rating so that kids don't get concussions, and it also plays more like natural turf. Then the carpet is laid, and then sand is laid, and the sand helps the fibers stand up. And then on top of the sand is an infill product, and that's what we had a great deal of debate about as to what that infill product would be. We eliminated the tire crumb rubber because of the lead content and the potential health risks, and we settled on a product that comes from a factory in British Columbia, and there's been a delay on that infill product. So we've had every assurance, thanks to our muscle over in the corner here. Anthony has been working this he is the enforcer. He's the eraser, the enforcer. He's been great during this project. But we've had every assurance from AstroTurf, the company that is providing the turf and the infill, that the infill the first delivery will be on Friday, and then the remainder of the infill product will be delivered on Monday, and it'll be actually put into place on Monday and Tuesday, if I'm correct.
There's 6 trucks that are coming. Friday starts the first truck, it'll go all weekend with the final truck arriving on Monday.
All right, that's okay. And the installers will be putting it in as the trucks are unloading. It's almost like when you pave a street, the asphalt keeps arriving and they keep, rolling it out. So it'll be brushed and prepared, and God willing, we'll be on it sometime next week. The date that we've been promised delivery is the 22nd, which coincides with the next home football game. So I know that Diane Corey she's lost a third of her home schedule due to the delay. So she's, field hockey and lacrosse are the two sports that benefit certainly the most from having the turf. That's where field hockey and lacrosse should be played, is on synthetic turf. So she's been the one that's had to kind of suck it up
Yeah.
and play on the Whitcomb outfield. And she's been doing it and haven't heard a gripe, but, you know, the kids are excited to get out there. I get some of the young girls have been beating me up a little bit. When are we gonna get our field? But, so, that's just an update. So the infill, once that infill does arrive, we'll be able to deliver the field. So, all right. We are moving on to the town meeting insertion of articles, which is number 4 on our agenda. And it is not a small item. So I will ask Mr. Bergman if you could kind of take the lead here for us with the articles. And Mr. Moderator, if you feel the need to jump in, by all means.
All right, very good. I have the board's proposed motion tonight, should you decide to insert all of these articles. Forgive that I use letters and as well as numbers to refer to them, but in your agenda packet, you've got backup materials, which I've numbered, or I've lettered the backup materials. So for example, the zoning amendment, the first 3 zoning amendments are A, B, and C, although they would be articles number 5, 6, and 7, so that when you go to the back of your packet, you can see the backup materials there. So we might be running back and forth. In general, what the overall picture would look like, you've already inserted 6 articles onto the warrant. I'm proposing, and you get to finalize the order in which the articles appear at the meeting on the 25th of September, following the close of the warrant and insertion of all the articles. But mindful that we're looking to have the zoning, the package of zoning articles that the planning board and COA are working on together, fairly close, but not exactly the first item on the agenda. I put a few what might be routine articles, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you could follow with 5, 6, and 7. We'd make some adjustments about that, but that generally is the procedure of what's going on here.
5, 6, and 7, based on our packets, coincides with A, B, and C.
That's right, that's right. So that would,
Can we go back to one that we've already added, and it was just a confusion on my part. So we've added Article 16. Is the language for that fixed? Right now, it says to reduce speed limits, but it's not actually to reduce speed limits, it's to give us the authority
to give
to
you the
reduce speed
authority, yeah, it's the statute that would allow you to reduce speed limits.
Can
Yeah.
we,
Or adjust speed limits.
right, or
It
adjust,
isn't-
can we clarify the title of that? Because
Sure.
speed limits don't actually decrease when we approve it. It simply
That-
gives us the
it-
authority to do so.
When
Right.
town meeting accepts those statutes, it authorizes the selectmen to reduce the speed limits. A town meeting does not have the authority to reduce the speed limits. The Board of Selectmen would, but only after the statutes are accepted.
That's stated in Mass General Law, right?
That is what the new law, I was part of the Municipal Modernization Act, says, and it's specifically around reducing speed limits. It's
No,
not to
Right,
increase.
yeah.
my concern isn't the nature, my concern is just the title of it.
Yeah.
Because the title says to reduce speed limits. It's not to reduce speed limits. It's to give us
Yes,
the
the
authority
authority
to reduce
And it's
speed
actually to
limits.
set them, right? I mean, theoretically, we could entertain a motion to increase them. I'm just saying that the law,
Well, you can
To
do that
adjust.
anyway, but the statute that we're citing only, only authorizes
reduce them? Is that true?
reduction. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So we don't have full authority still, it's not, it's just,
Well, you have authority right now to increase speed limits. The way the procedure works currently, with not having accepted this statute yet, is that in order to change the speed limit on a town road, the existing law, the prior law, pre-existing law, allows the Board of Selectmen to petition MassDOT to do a study, and then the results of that study dictate what the speed is. And the problem is, if you have, typically you're doing the study on a road where the neighbors have complained about speeding traffic. And when you do the study shows the average speed is.
I know what the norm has been, it's been, you
Increases.
know, and it's frustrating. So I welcome the change, but I also see what, if.
I just envision 1,000 questions about, oh, well, where are you
What are the
reducing?
speed
What's the
limits
speed
gonna
limit?
be?
Why-
Right, right.
But none of that is covered by this
Yeah,
article.
I think if it ought to be to accept the statute to authorize the town to set speed limits or whatever, modify, just so you know, I think you're correct, Chase, you're gonna lead people with the impression that we're automatically reducing speed limits by adopting this, and we're not.
No, you're not.
Right.
It's two-step, and the second step would be the selectmen, but the second step will not be you, but under this statute, you won't be increasing them, you'll only be reducing them.
And that's what the
That's why
statute states.
it's focused.
All right, well, that's fine,
So
but
it is a
this-
summary of the statute.
Okay.
but people shouldn't be left with the impression that this adoption of that article will automatically reduce speed limits, right?
I guess that's my concern. The
Yeah.
title leads me to believe that we are reducing speed limits if we are to accept it.
Right.
No,
We can put that in the
but
summary.
if you don't want to authorize the selectmen to reduce them,
No,
don't.
you're missing the point. We're not against the article. I think it's the wording of it. It's,
I simply envision a lot of
right,
unnecessary questions about where we're
Maybe you ought
going
to
to.
just say, accept state statutes regarding, town role and speed limits or something like that, just so it's
Pursuant to,
not leading people to make assumptions.
Or we could put in parentheses after speed limit as allowed by Mass General
Yeah,
Law.
I mean, we don't need to make it a paragraph length either. I know there's gotta be a way of whittling that down.
I understand what
Well-
you're saying, but I do think there's gonna be there's gonna be supporting,
Yeah, how about this, accept state
Explanation behind
statute
it.
on speed limits?
There you go, fine. And
And
then,
then, the explanation,
There you go,
though,
yeah.
will,
Right.
the
Done.
explanation.
That was all I was looking for.
Yeah, the
that's good.
summary, the
That
summary
works.
will drill down a little more to say,
yeah, and
Right.
that's true,
you know,
yeah.
for example, if you want that the Board of Selectmen, if this is if this is adopted, any thickly settled road, the Board of Selectmen can vote to set the speed limit at 25 miles an hour, with no one's further approval, no study, no nothing. So
right now at 30.
right now, you're at, yeah, I think it's 30, Mike.
30.
I don't know.
Sorry to make us
Anyway.
rehash something.
No, it's
No, no,
okay.
it's-
Better
I
to have
like
the
I like your
Save us ahead
solution.
of you.
I like your solution.
Okay, so, looking at the list of articles, the first three articles, I suggest we look at as a package, and it's the three that were brought forward by the planning board for zoning amendment for senior residential development, zoning amendment for inclusionary housing, and then a town bylaw to establish an affordable housing trust fund. And I wanted to just, I put as a backdrop here, as a graphic, that those three things are goals 3, 4, and 5 in the master plan housing chapter. So the planning board is following precisely what the master plan has mapped out for us. So, they had their, they're going to have a public hearing on October 5th, I think, on the zoning amendments. I know both the planning board and the council on aging have been working together on the public information to get information out to the community, so that's great as well. So those are those three. The second, or letter D, I'm just going to go back to this list. Letter D, amend personal exemption amounts.
Before we move,
I'm sorry.
just a suggestion, either, is it appropriate to ask the COA and planning board chairs whether there's anything they want to speak to on those articles? I mean, we've got them in front of us,
Yeah,
but,
that's great.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Ed Mullen, Chair of the Planning Board. It's the most exciting thing I've done since I've been on the planning board, folks. I say 1,000 times when I get on there, rubber stamping subdivisions is not what I envisioned when I ran for the planning board. This is real planning. I'm excited about doing something for our seniors so they can stay in our town. I'm excited about the inclusionary bylaw because it ties in so well with the senior residential development bylaw. And of course, the most important, I think, is establishing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we're knocking down 1, 2, 3. It's in the master plan. It's something I think this town wants. It's something we need. So I'm begging everybody for your support, please.
And likewise, we're thrilled, and we have worked to put together some ways of educating people and getting the word out about it, so people understand it when it comes time for town meeting.
Good.
So hopefully we'll be successful in getting some of that information out and people will hear it.
Well, we hope so.
Yep.
Thanks, Madge.
Pamela Campbell, Director of Elder and Human Services. I really want to thank the planning board for including us in all the work that they've done in pulling these 3 items forward and pulling them together. We felt that we've been consulted, they've reached out to the seniors. We do think that this is really a very strong package, and I couldn't agree with Ed more, that I really feel like this is true planning for the future.
Yeah, I concur, and I've had some conversations about this, and I think that, couldn't say it better. I mean, this is planning. This is, we can feel good about putting these forward and making a difference in our community for our seniors.
When's the date for the public hearing?
I believe it's October 5th, we're gonna do an information. We're also trying to get together with Council on Aging, our consultant, and myself. We're gonna try to do a PSA on LCTV, so that it'll be an infomercial about the 3 proposed senior housing bylaw, inclusionary and trust fund. My big debut.
I'll get some popcorn. Awesome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Please.
yeah, go ahead, absolutely. That's what you're here for.
Any differences between these articles that are coming up for essentially the second time compared to last town meeting? Do we think last time meeting it was misunderstanding, or did we make changes that will address concerns?
So, yeah, great question, both. We definitely made some bigger changes, but more importantly, we got everybody to understand it, when we discussed it, so. But yeah, we made some changes. We modified the size of units for single families to a smaller amount. The trust fund not being a part of the original package, I think made the senior residential development less attractive, because they were just gonna be required to either provide affordable housing or build it without any state approval. So now we can actually, the town can recoup a lot of dedicated money if we're not gonna get affordable units. We're gonna get the money, and the town can build affordable units with the money that we should get. So I think that's important. So significant changes were made.
Okay, so there's some
Yeah,
difference.
only one of those 3 articles was actually on the warrant for the annual town meeting. It was the first one, senior residential development, inclusionary housing, and the trust fund, or first-timers at town meeting.
Another question, if I may, with respect to the trust fund, how did we determine the payment in lieu of cost? What underlies, what is it, $60,000?
So it's actually 120. So we doubled what the state
Oh,
requires.
up to 120, okay.
Yeah. So we doubled what the state would require if we were doing a state mandated 55 and older and following their regulations. And we were gonna, in lieu of providing affordable units in 55 and older community, we would only be getting 60,000. Well, with our bylaw, that developer pays 120,000.
Okay, so the basis is just a multiple off of the state's?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Do we know how that compares to other communities?
We did it based on the metropolitan study of, how many of these words, but a cost analysis in the area, and that's what, if we use the state regulation, that's the number that this town would be required to use.
Okay.
Would be the 60,000.
This is one of those times when having the consultant Judy Barrett in the room would be helpful.
Yeah. I'm
It'd
trying
be
to
helpful
remember
for the
everything that we
presentation
worked on.
because she lives and breathes this stuff and has been a great advisor to the group.
I mean, mostly I wanted to understand that we had some solid basis to it, and beyond that, certainly rely on your expertise to determine that that's a reasonable basis.
Is the intention of the board to have Judy in the room and available?
Correct. She will be there to present. I will be the other presenter as the chair of the board. But-
We scheduled the meeting around Judy. Town meeting is on October 30 because she wasn't available October 23rd.
So,
Okay, good.
And I'm not even kidding about that.
That's good.
She was gonna be
I think it's
in
that
air at town
important.
meeting
Yeah.
the other night, yeah, so.
All right, good. Yeah, 'cause I think that was a missing piece.
it was a huge missing piece at the last
Yeah.
presentation, but I think it gave us an opportunity to make it better. And
Mhm.
now we have, a whole package.
Learn from it, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good. Any other thoughts, ideas?
Did have one
questions?
other question, if you'll entertain me for a moment. The incentives and cost offsets, the basis for the 75% density bonus, again, same type of question. What was the basis for that bonus versus a 50% or 100%? So
I
where
don't
did
have
that
the
come?
bylaw in front of me right now to
Sure.
to see what you're reading from, but I know again that our study was based off of the state regulations, and we modified it to think what would help us, one, make it attractive to a developer that would actually provide a senior residential development in this town. And we wanted to be able to use tracts of land that would be attractive and be able to provide, and it moves more towards, because everything is gonna be a special permit. It has to be approved by the planning board. If it doesn't make sense for this town, it won't happen. But the reason is that if there's a small piece of land that you wanna do, and it's not for the single family, it's not for an apartment complex, it's for, the words are escaping me now. No, it's
Cluster?
aging place, what's the, tier 1, 2, 3? Assisted living, thank you. Like an assisted living facility, nursing home.
Sounds like.
Modified, yeah. I was counting myself like, 1, 2, where's number 3? Yeah, assisted living facility, because we want the density for an
Sure.
assisted living facility. We're not looking to we're not approve something that'll be apartment complexes. We're looking to approve something that allows the seniors maybe to live in a cottage-style, single-family unit where it's first floor living. They go from there to assisted living, to, hospice, and it can all be on one site. And you need those facilities to encompass on a single campus, but maybe you have the cottage style across the street because the developer bought over there, and they could pick up a 2-acre piece, on the other side of the common and put assisted living facility in there. So that was the idea behind the density.
Okay. Thank you for.
All right, good, those are good questions. Here, what's it, Mike? All set?
Yep.
As it ties into the
Absolutely.
master plan? Okay.
Just want to add one other advantage why this particular package is superb, and that is it's simplified. The formulas that you were talking about in terms of the fee in lieu of and all the rest are greatly simplified. It turns out that smaller developers, that is developers that don't do big projects, are not used to dealing with the state-type mandated calculations you have to do, and it's quite expensive for them to do. In this particular case, a straight formula is delivered, and they can make their decisions within moments, as it were, as opposed to a long, drawn-out process. This makes it even more attractive to a broader range of developers.
Thanks, Mike. That's Mike Zeldin, the chairman of Master Plan Implementation. Okay, I think we're good with 5, 6, and 7, or A, B, and C? Any other questions or comments? All right, so on Article 8, personal exemption amounts?
This is a proposal to increase from 50% to 100% the amount of the personal exemption that is available for elders, blindness, and other disabled. And the question had come up prior to the annual town meeting, could we increase it more than 50%? The way the article was written, we couldn't, but we could bring it back. There was some talk, gee, could we do 200%? And well, it turns out Boxborough did 200%, and unfortunately, the statute limits it to 100%. So we have, in your packet, you have some information from Pamela and from Kathy Miller with a recommendation to go for 100%. This is item D in your packet. The impact would be a total of the total estimated impact is $61,000 based on the
Applicants.
the number of applicants that we have for those exemptions currently. So And it was one of the board's goals to look at a way to, look at ways to provide tax relief for seniors.
And those in need. Okay,
I
good.
don't know if you have any questions.
Any questions or thoughts on that, folks?
No.
Good.
Maybe I want to.
Sure, go ahead.
Ms. Campbell, would you mind to explain the program a little bit for me? Help me understand who's eligible for the exemption and under, how it works. I mean, because right now I see, maybe a few dozen applicants, so I presume that it's not just a,
It's not open to just anyone.
Right.
I'm wearing my hat here as Director of the Council on Aging and Elder and Human Services. I'm also on the Board of Assessors. So the state is very clear on who is eligible for these kinds of exemptions, these personal exemptions. Some of them are based on age and means testing. We mentioned the idea of the disabled, for example, blind, those who are totally and completely blind are eligible. Veterans, disabled veterans are eligible. The reason we can give you such a hard figure on this is because these people are known to us. They are already applying for the exemption. In the past, we've always given them a 50% bump, and now we're just asking to make that a 100% bump. If you look in the first paragraph of the memo, the real increase to the budget is about $15,000. It's not a
Because
huge
we're already
amount of money.
at 45,000.
Because we're already at
Going from 50 to 100
45,000.
would increase it to 61, so the delta's.
So Kathy Miller, Chief Assessor, and I were able to make a very clear statement of how it would increase. We don't anticipate that in the next year, 2 years, that we'll have an influx of people that would qualify.
and so surviving spouses, non-disabled veterans, and seniors are all means tested. Blind and 100% disabled veterans are not means tested, is that accurate?
Kathy can tell you exactly how the formulas are applied, but you're in the right track.
Okay,
It's-
right,
it's
there's
very
nuance to
strict.
it.
It's very strict, yes.
Thank you.
All right, good. Next up, we have transfer ownership of Cooper Farm parcels to the town of Littleton. It's Article 9 relative to the deed.
And this takes us back to what we're looking at a recent meeting. This article would propose to follow the language in the host community agreement that was signed by the board in place then, and to authorize, and the town meeting so voted, it would authorize a deed to accept a total of 4 pieces of property. There's 2 of them are labeled A, although one of them is for housing. The farmhouse in
Blue A?
in the blue, the blue A, along with 4 other parcels which would remain without structure. So-called parcel A could be used for recreation, conservation, and/or agricultural use per the language in the host community agreement. Parcels B and C would be for agricultural purposes only, parcel D, conservation only. And again, that language and the language in the article reflects what the form of the host community agreement was that was signed by the Board of Selectmen in April of 2016. So, and I've been asked the question, well, if you go in with an article that says it could be recreation, conservation, or agricultural for A, could there be a motion on the floor that chose one of those, for example, to say recreation? And with the moderator here, I defer to his judgment, but I would say if you go in with an article for this much and you go within the scope of the article, such a motion could be in order. But you could not go in, say, with one use and then change your mind on town meeting floor to go from, let's say if you pick recreation and you get in there and the room wants conservation or agriculture, then you can't make that change. So the way that the article has been drafted is to essentially preserve what the HCA said, and you can, the Board of Selectmen that's here now can bring it in that form, or you can decide how you want to bring it to town meeting.
So I see Mr. Mullins' hand up, and I know he has some concerns about the language of having recreation, conservation, and agriculture as parcel A. Do you want to say your piece, or you want me to try to
Right,
address
so
your concern?
my understanding is when we were negotiating the terms with the fields on regarding, and I mean Matt and Mike Field, not the fields that are up here.
M&M.
Correct, M&M. They, in their agreement in the purchase and sale, that A, the active recreation is what it's deeded for. D is deeded for agricultural use. They actually had to put an easement in through one of the properties so that a vehicle
It
could
could be
get
hay.
down there and maintain the fields to hay them and be mowed. So I wouldn't want to see it deemed for conservation. If you want to put it in for municipal use, agriculture, and again, same for the upper field along the road, it was strictly, when we approved it, it was for active recreation only.
So the host community agreement that was signed by M&M, like Fields, the language, rather than telling you what I think the language is, anticipated this, funds along the restricted and preserved for recreation, conservation, and/or agricultural purposes. That was open space area A. So now I understand the purchasing sale agreement, the agreement that they had with the Board of Selectmen was this language.
Okay, so with that agreement, when it was brought before us, we determined, when we went through our negotiations, I don't know who's holding the ace here, and I'll defer to the selectmen for sure, but I'm just saying that when we were negotiating, that was active recreation, and the fields that back is labeled conservation.
So they were coming to you with a deed that they had recorded based on the purchase and sale that they,
Well, the deed, yeah, I don't know that the deed had been recorded by the time they were in front of the planning board, though.
right, perhaps.
I mean, in fact, one of the ways that the matter was, and this, what I'm putting up here is from, a few meetings ago, we had town council prepare a critique of the draft deed and how it compared to the host community agreement. and
This is
what
the draft deed for us taking possession of that land.
And the only issues that were different was that the draft deed stated that it was the desire of the parties to have Area A be used exclusively for active recreation. We called that one out as something that was not agreed to in the host community agreement. And further, that areas A, B, and C are restricted to protect and preserve the scenic vista along Great Road. That restriction is not, neither of those was to be in the form of the deed that would be approvable by the, pursuant to the host community agreement. If the board here or town meeting wanted to agree to both of those, you can, but that's not the form of the agreements that's not the form of the agreement that's in place right now. You can amend the agreement, but you got those critiques from town council saying how the draft deed differed from the host community agreement. So those were two issues. The other was that this article only talks about what would be in the deed. It doesn't talk about if the planning board issues a permit for recreation and doesn't issue one for other uses, then even if the deed allows 3 uses and you permit 1, how many uses are happening there? 1, right? Or if town meeting should subsequently decide, well, we want to put a ball field there, so we're going to appropriate money to build one, then 3 uses comes down to 1, so.
I'm not particularly concerned about the either-or option. Certainly when this was coming through conservation, we understood that parcel A, to sort of split the difference between you guys, we understood parcel A was still open to debate, but the intention, the expectation was active recreation, which I think is what this reflects. Mr. Mullen, though, rightly points out that Area D, if that is just conservation, does that preclude agriculture? And either or on A is less concerning to me because that's the town's decision to do it as they see fit. Area D is conservation, though. Are we limiting ourselves by not including agriculture there? Because it certainly was Conservation's understanding at the time that we were permitting it, working with planning, that there was an easement back that way for.
But conservation land can be hayed, can it not? Or does it have to be deemed?
I'd be surprised if the dictionary, or if the statutory definition of conservation include agriculture, so, no. But again, I guess what I would point us back to
It was
is.
definitely our intention, I mean,
Was the intention way back when we first saw the first drawings, after they were altered, was that backfield, there was always gonna be some kind of way of getting back to the hay. That was always talked
which
about.
is the easement that Mr. Mullins spoke of.
Right.
And Conservation permitted it with, absolutely with that in mind. That was the understanding.
Right, and again, we actually, we had fire get involved, and chief came down and talked about a fire access road.
Yeah.
In case there was a forest fire, a field fire, a brush truck would get in there. So all that's provided for in the schematical drawings that we approved. So it should be, in my opinion as chair, when we were planning this, working with the conservation, that that was gonna be a field that would be maintained. You know, again, open space, absolutely, but let's benefit from the land and get a farmer in there to hay it, you know? Let's keep our farmers with hay.
Yeah, I think this is the point at which, where the current Board of Selectmen can choose to bring to town meeting what you would like to see there. So if what brought us this far, if this represents the point in time, April of 2016, when the issue on the table was, what do you need to get in order to waive the right of first refusal under 61A?
Right.
This was the configuration that we came up with. If in fact what you want to do, for example, is to say, well, A should be recreation, D should be conservation and agriculture, I think you can, you can give those marching orders now, and town council can work out that deal with the
Why don't we do that?
property owner,
Yeah.
Right.
rather than.
One question,
get
I don't
stuck
know if we
with
need
the
this
past.
question to go to council, if it's gonna be some time before A is developed as active recreation, is there any reason in the interim we couldn't do continue agricultural use on there? Is it by limiting it, say, for instance, to active recreation, are we preventing ourselves from allowing it to be hayed the next couple of years before that project takes hold?
That sounds like, maybe do
Reasonable.
it two for there, do recreation and agriculture for A, and
Agriculture
do conservation and
until such
agriculture
time
for
as
D.
active recreation.
Yeah, it sounds like the only really restrictive one would be the conservation part, because that is very statutorily limited.
Particularly if we're talking about it.
Once you put it into conservation, you don't
That's
take,
it.
you don't take it out.
No going back, right, yeah.
Brad Mitchell, One Wilderness Road with the Agricultural Commission. Just be aware, they may hay conservation land once in a while. Usually get one cutting because of birds and the restrictions on bird. It's really not conservation land, it's really not agricultural land. It's getting harder and harder to find farmers to cut that hay because there's less of a market for construction hay. So there, depending on how you word the conservation, there can be conflicts that really preclude agricultural activities on there. Just because they cut hay, half the time it's really a favor the farmer's doing. So.
Good perspective, thank you.
Now, our one concern about deviating from that is that, deviating from any of these distinctions, although I think we're going in this direction, is that we didn't necessarily want to make those changes without some kind of public process. In fact, we had talked about, would it make sense to offer an amendment on the floor of town meeting to Area A or potentially Area D? I'm not actually particularly persuaded by that concern, but that is why we've held off so far.
I think in the case of D, based on the discussion today, that we ought not to go to town meeting with the language as drafted in the warrant, because D doesn't include agriculture as a potential option. So we'd want to, I think you'd want to actually make that change to in the articles
To
posted.
either add agriculture as an option, or
And certainly there's a fundamental difference between adding options and taking away options.
As I said before, if you go to town meeting with one item, then that's the scope of the article. So if you go
It can't be,
and say
yeah,
D is
broad.
conservation, the moderator's not gonna be able to take a motion that says, well, no, it's not.
It's changed.
You know,
It could be more
it'll be
restrictive
something
but not
else.
more expansive,
Yeah.
right?
Mr. Chair, what is this document that's recorded? The whereas?
The host
There's no
community
begin-
agreement?
Is this, yeah, it's not like the full,
Yeah, that's the
Version.
next, that's an excerpt of the host community
so
agreement.
just, so that's the host community agreement?
Correct.
Yeah, and so that's what the Board of Selectmen at the time agreed to as the purposes for those
Okay.
parcels. And that host community agreement was recorded along with the deed
Right.
when it was sold, when it
From
when it was
Cooper Trust.
transferred from Cooper to M&M. That,
Right.
that
Right.
host community agreement is recorded at the same time.
Okay, so in the interest of progress, is the pleasure of the board to take conservation off of black A and add agriculture to D? Because that gives.
Personally,
that
I'd be
gives
for it,
agriculture-
but I also, I think Chase raised a pretty reasonable point that that we haven't had much of a deliberative process, although all this has been done publicly, we haven't had a dedicated hearing on it. I wonder whether we should schedule a hearing, make our choices tonight because we're under the gun, and then have a hearing, so that we can give people a chance to,
What's good about that is that it's a two-step process. Step one is to put an article in the warrant. Step
Right.
two will be to have the board come up with its motion to be moved under that article. So tonight, you could put the menu of options, you could put 3 options for A and 2 for D. I suggest you add agriculture as well as conservation. Then have your hearing, we do that in October, you make your motion to be offered under this article, and at which point, if you so wish, you could propose, say, recreation
a more
as the
limited.
A. A limited,
Yeah, so-
yeah.
And that would
You
be the
could choose
motion,
from the
and that would
list,
be the
yeah.
motion that goes before the
The
town.
main motion would be to have your proposal for a limited list, but it would still allow the voters to go back to the full scope of the article if they wished.
Which is not necessarily
I mean, the full intention of that black A was for active recreation through any of the negotiations, and I still struggle with the fact that that language is in the HCA. And all my notes that I went back to, and Joe, you can probably speak to this.
Yeah, it's probably my fault for not picking up on it, because I remember talking to, it was,
I wouldn't-
Well, where
I'm
did
not
this
looking for
language,
explaining, I just think that-
we're looking at right here, who drafted that? How did conservation end up on that list?
It's in the
It
host
ended up in the host
community, it's in the host community
It is,
agreement signed
okay,
by
so
the
that's-
select.
Right here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's right
yeah.
here. When it was signed and recorded.
right.
So in order to preserve the options
I know,
for
I do.
yourselves,
Feels like the wrong version.
It does look like the wrong person was recorded, that's exactly right. That's my feeling. But if our signatures are on page 10 of these 2 pages that we have here, then shame on me for not.
well, me too, because I remember conversation about even active recreation field being named after Vinnie Cooper, so I remember the
Right,
conversation
absolutely,
taking
yeah.
place.
And
As it was
that never
recorded
made
was the
it
intention that.
that never made it into the agreement.
Didn't make it to the, yeah, right, exactly. So it's unfortunate. I think that there was an open process. I mean, we had several meetings and discussions.
I think Paul's suggestion of a path forward makes
The most sense?
the most sense, so that we can continue to maintain the public process, gather public input. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is what's on the
With the
page,
addition of agriculture under D.
with the addition of agriculture.
So the only change we make to this existing plan.
And then after the hearing, based on what we hear, what we explain as our intentions and what feedback we get, then we settle on a more specific motion.
Right.
Right.
Or not, if
Or
that's the
not,
case.
yeah,
We-
right.
Certainly, it's
Yeah, we would
conceivable.
certainly make a
there's a-
recommendation for town meeting.
That's
And make an amendment on town meeting floor if necessary.
Yeah.
All right, so, Keith, I know that you've got a motion here, but since it seems like everything else is kind of sanguine, I think maybe,
Yeah, if you want to make a specific motion now, and then
I
you'll,
think that's probably a good,
while we're thinking about it.
Did some, no?
Well,
Rob Houston, Meeting House Road. I actually just had a question. Mr. Mullen said that the vesting deed to M&M from Hoover Farm contained the language about recreation. I understand the host community agreement, but I assume the vesting deed didn't have that language because it referred to the host HCA. I'm just curious whether anybody knows what the vesting deed actually said. Just question more than anything else.
We've been using the host community agreement as the
That's
document.
the contract with us right now. We don't have a deed.
Right,
It
our
has no
reference has
transfer
been
to
the
us.
host community agreement, not any negotiations between the
private
buyer
parties.
and the
So it
seller.
doesn't matter from your standpoint. That's all. Okay, good enough. Thank
But
you.
for example, your point is a valid
Well,
one,
it
though. For
goes to the
example,
intent, I guess, on some level.
the planning board special permit labels open space parcel A as active recreation.
Right.
So there's not the either or in the planning board's permit.
And they also label D as agricultural.
And they label
And
D as.
they're gonna say that they were presented with that vesting deed, or they saw the vesting deed, and everything they've been told relied on the vesting deed, not your host. I'm not arguing how you're.
Yeah, and so,
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not town council.
But
I was-
the deed happened after, after they got out of the planning board.
Okay.
The property,
curious.
property didn't get transferred
So
until after.
Procedurally, I don't know that we need to take a vote now. If Keith just, you probably already changed the
Making the
language
amendments?
over there.
Yeah.
When we make a blanket motion, we
Yeah,
can
because the one,
incorporate the
yeah,
changes.
yeah, the only change is to add agriculture as an additional use to D.
Yeah, and
That's
the
it.
other part about having a hearing isn't required for this process. We
No,
just need
you
to do
you
it.
can take that
all right, so
motion.
Article 10, which is listed as F.
All right, let's get this train rolling.
Motion, yeah, Charlotte Hotwell property donation for West Lawn Cemetery. This is a great opportunity for us.
This is great.
Yeah.
Here's the,
The map.
where's the property?
So it's number 10 or F on our alphabetical listing.
And it's,
There, I think there is some,
approval not required
Yeah,
plan was brought to the planning board last Thursday. It's lot H2 on that plan, the 15 or so acres, and it abuts West Lawn Cemetery, which is immediately south of it, right?
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So,
And we may never even need it.
Hopefully.
People can live forever.
No, it's just the rate of cremations as opposed to burials is gone 2 to 1.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so, I mean,
We should have had a crematorium.
Is that gonna be your election campaign or thing?
Just another opportunity to go after it, that's all that was.
we put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, there you go, Keith.
Is that be considered active recreation?
Eternal.
Passive recreation? Conservation?
Eternal.
Oh, boy, it's off the rails. All right, so F looks good. Everybody okay with F?
Yeah.
Carry on. All right, good. 11.
Chuck?
Oh, you got a
I'm Janet Sullivan, 7
Cemetery
Road.
Cemetery.
And I'm a cemetery commissioner, which we're very grateful for the land. But my understanding is there might be some question as to how much of it can be used. It's quite a hill. So there's going to be some considerable studying to get there.
Give to us.
You need more than one in some places.
So there might be some walking trails for
Right.
remembrance and meditation.
Right. I know I'm dating myself, but I do remember the ski area.
Sure.
And the rope tow.
Right.
So,
I got one of those on my stairs.
no. But we're very grateful.
All right, great.
And certainly we will be well used.
We'll certainly work with the cemetery commissioners to do all
Put the rope tow back in?
environmental studies and all the things that we have to do to have it be properly developed.
Ancient Rome, they had the Tarpeian cliffs where they just threw the bodies over the cliff.
You're just full of history major, right? Yeah, no known fact there, Chase, that the ancient Rome.
I do know there won't be any hunting. And what was the latest? Archery lessons.
Okay,
Also.
I'm not gonna,
I don't go there.
thank you. Yeah, exactly. Short trip to the cemetery after that. All right, G. So we're okay with 10, Article 10/F?
Yep.
All right, good. G is 11, tax title properties, butter land on Newtown Road.
We've had DPW Director Chris Stoddard prepare plans, which we'll refer to for purposes of the town meeting vote. And at previous discussion, the board directed that we carve out 4,800 square foot lots that were adjacent to the properties, the abutter properties. So this is,
416 Newtown.
yeah, and this is what, yep. So this is what Chris has come up with. The plan ultimately would be to have an A&R plan, an approval not required plan, approvable by the planning board, prepared at the expense of the abutter, purchaser. But since they don't want to incur expenses unnecessarily prior to a town meeting vote, and I don't blame them, that we'll go on these, we can have, on these plans that Chris Stoddard has prepared.
That makes it available for them to be able to be part of the abutter program.
Yes, yeah, and the A&R plan will be pretty close to that, you know, close enough for government work. So this will get a vote through.
So at a previous Board of Selectmen meeting, in the butter at 416 Newtown Road, needs to do some modifications and expand the septic system. So this land here is all town-owned land. Tax title land. So in looking for some opportunity to help them out, tax title property has to be less than 4,800 square feet. So we kind of carved out 4,800 square feet to make it available for them to put some of our tax title land back on the rolls, tax rolls. And we've reached out to the resident of 414 in the event that they are interested in purchasing a 4,800 square foot parcel in the rear of their property as well. Again, putting more property back into the tax rolls. At this point, they're still investigating it, but the abutter at 416 Newtown Road is interested, so we're taking the action to make it available to be part of the tax title program. So, just so people know
And
what we're...
the other gift out of the process?
The other gift out of the process is we would then donate the remaining land that is under the tax title to
Conservation.
Conservation.
And along those lines, I spoke to Conservation after our meeting a few weeks ago, and they were fairly opposed to this plan at first, but, well, opposed to the abutter program at first. They understand the basis. I mean, certainly it's their prerogative to vote as they so choose, and they didn't at that meeting, but I would say that they're generally comfortable with this compromise.
Good work.
It was your idea. For what it's worth, I give you credit.
We're a team. Just in case they went the other way on you?
Yeah, right. Duck and cover.
All right. So we're good with draft Article 11, or G, at this point? Good? All right, so draft Article 12, which is H. There is an amendment or a change under A to that one, the school curb and sidewalk repairs. It's listed as $50,000. If you can make the change to $99,000, correct? Mr. Bradley?
That's right. Chris Stoddard had submitted backup information indicating a project cost estimate of $139,000, of which there is $40,000 already appropriated at the annual town meeting for the school curb and sidewalk repairs. So the increment that's needed for that is $99,000. Another request that we have is from the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a total of $80,000 for two projects. One is to prepare a master plan for Littleton Common. That would estimate is $30,000. And then detailed review of the zoning bylaw and recommendations. That's estimate is $50,000. So it's a total of $80,000. And I was happy to just be able to go to the master plan document itself and find those as, you know, or the top, among the top recommendations in the land use category. So we're, again, we're following the master plan and adhering to that and the next steps that we're taking.
I think that maybe it's appropriate at this point. There's been a lot of proposals, do stuff on the common. If it's our intention to spend money for a master plan for the common, we might want to kind of pull the reins a little bit with any of our, whether it's putting a gazebo up.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas out there, but they're coming in from every direction, yeah.
Yeah, so I just think that you may pump the brakes a little bit. And whether or not this passes may kind of tell us, where to go from there. But I think that we can just look at this a little bit broader rather than piecemealing a bunch of stuff and putting it together on the common. And then as far as the library accessibility.
Yeah, and then we had a request from the library trustees for $4,500 and change for accessibility expenses for the rear door. We reviewed it with Bonnie and Anthony today, and actually there's enough money in the operating budget for the current year. The public buildings budget, that we don't need to
put it in a warrant.
Put it in a warrant. We have the money that would be available. We did not have it in June, at the end of the fiscal year, when we were running out of money, but we do have it in the new budget, so we could address that. Appreciate Sam getting the cost estimate.
So again, Sam, so this is the door that's in
Yes, by the converter.
next to the rear entrance. Yeah, exactly. Just a push button system, handicap accessibility, so you can get in that ground floor level.
Right, and now the elevator doesn't have a key anymore, so you can just go right into the elevator.
Great, thank you.
So we're good, that's gonna be struck from the warrant,
Would
and
just
it's
be,
gonna be
yeah, we only need to go,
conducted in operational.
we've already got the money for the library one, so we don't need to go to town meeting to get more, so.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Knox? Good? Everybody's good? Okay, so we'll just strike that, move on to draft Article 13, which is item I, if you will.
That's a proposed temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana, and as I started at the beginning of the meeting, as I discussed with the planning board last Thursday, a couple of things have happened since the May town meeting, when voters passed a temporary bylaw on recreational marijuana. Number one, in order of what happened, on July 28th, the governor signed a different bill, the modified bill. It wasn't what the voters had approved in the ballot question last November. It was a modified version, which frankly has all sorts of things that many communities are going to have to consider. For example, if you want to limit the number of permits that you have for registered marijuana dispensaries or which includes cultivation sites. In order to limit it, you can only do that by referendum. You can't simply do it as we've done thus far for medicinal by a zoning bylaw. There are some communities.
There's some break in there between communities that voted in favor.
Yes, right, there's it's a different standard. For those communities that voted against the ballot question 4, there's one set of rules. For those who voted for it, there's a different set of rules. We voted for it. Littleton voters were in favor of recreational marijuana, so we're in the latter category. But still, there's a number of steps that you need to go through in order to craft what the rules are in your particular community. And among the things that stood out to me is that our zoning bylaw limits it to 1, and we've already issued the 1. You can't get away with that under the new statute signed by the governor in July unless you go through an additional process of a referendum. But we haven't even had the discussion about it. There's also a procedure for town meeting to vote to establish the local sales tax on retail sales of marijuana, but that does not apply to cultivation. It only applies, which is not a retail sale. It would only apply if they were actually a dispensary in the community. So plenty of things for us to talk about. We need the time. And the new statute and the way the Attorney General is implementing it that any community that wants a moratorium through December 31 of next year will be granted. The state itself is organizing its level. You can't walk in today and get a permit for recreational marijuana because the state hasn't adopted their own procedures and regulations yet. They just seated the Cannabis Control Commission, so-called. And they've got a deadline for all of their work. So, a lot of good reasons to redo a moratorium and to establish a later date. And then we get down to the practical, which is the Attorney General may not approve the bylaw that we in fact passed in May because of the Attorney General's office is reviewing whether the two-thirds vote requirement was met by a voice vote rather than a hand count. And just the best way for us to guard against that is to just bring it back to town meeting, and to, between now and October 30, there will be no such permits issued by the state, so we safely have that much time to go forward. So that's the proposal, a temporary moratorium, part 2. And there will be a lot of work to be done on looking at options for recreational marijuana in the coming months for us and for all the other communities.
And the current moratorium that's in question goes through the end of this year? Is that right?
No, it would have, if it passed, it would have gone through August of 2018.
Okay.
So this would essentially bring it forward to a date which would allow us to bring the zoning to our fall town meeting in 2018 rather than having to bring it to the spring town meeting.
Sure. So it really just advances it 4 months.
So that's that one, and the planning board did vote on Thursday to proceed with this zoning article as well. There's a procedural vote when we're done here. We have to, under the statute, chapter 48, we actually have to refer the zoning back to the planning board, even the ones that they refer to us. So, but they're scheduling the hearing anyway. And then next we've got 2 town bylaw amendments. The first one up is requested by the Agricultural Commission to amend our town bylaws and accept the new state statute. And Brad is here to talk to us about that.
Will Pickard's the chair, Brad Mitchell, One Wilderness Road AgCom. Will Pickard's the chair, he asked me to come tonight. This state law actually has its roots in Littleton with Church Meadows. When the town acquired Church Meadows, Jamie Cruz, who was on the AgCom, had wanted the AgCom to manage the land. Recreation manages recreation land, conservation manages conservation land, and it made sense to a lot of folks that AgCom should manage agricultural land that's owned by the town. She came to Farm Bureau. For those of you who don't know, I'm policy director there. We spoke to some other towns. They had the same issue where they had different groups who weren't necessarily appropriate to be managing town ag land, managing the land. We spoke to Mass Association of AgComs. We filed this bill, and it was ultimately approved through the Community Modernization Act last year. All we had actually asked for was the ability to hold managed lands pursuant to the Selectmen, but as legislation often goes, they added a bunch of things to it. We have to do a town meeting, we can accept gifts and things like that on behalf of the town. But the AgCom does support this. We'd ask to move it forward. We've got a couple pieces of town property, farms, the Orchard, Church Meadows, that I think a lot of folks are looking at and saying we need to review the leases on it. We've had an agricultural lands committee. It's been chaired by somebody from the AgCom, from the select board, but you folks are busy, and it's gone in fits and starts, and it's, for several years now, we really haven't come to any solution on these, so it makes sense to us to give this to the AgCom under the guidance and oversight of you guys, so.
And for clarification, the statute gives the authority for this board to.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
but it is not an automatic.
It's not an automatic, it just gives it, before this happened, AgComs weren't recognized in state law, and you guys needed state authority to charge that just as you would with conservation.
And the other local impact of note is that the statute, again, speaks to the makeup of the committee in such a way that another request that the AgCom had made in terms of having
Well, we hadn't really made a
non-residents
request.
can't do that.
Yeah, we had discussed the possibility, because we found some good members who worked in farms in town but weren't town members. And we were thinking about coming to ask you folks to see if we could get non-residents on the AgCom. We didn't realize there was another bylaw that prohibited, but this law would prohibit, this is our priority, so we won't be asking for that. And we never came to consensus on that, we had just discussed it. So all we're asking for is this, basically to adopt this state statute.
And in terms of the fits and starts that you cited earlier, Chase and I
We're on
had.
a start-up swing.
We're ready to
Yeah.
start again, yeah. We've met, we're our designees for this board.
Yeah.
I know that is it Will and yourself from AgCom?
Yes.
Yeah, and then.
Will's
Keith-
dad from Conservation. So
you
we
guys-
had
you
done
guys
a
had-
lot of work, and I don't know what happened to that. We had draft contracts for the orchard and things
And
like that.
there's a finance committee member appointee too, Keith. Would you mind doing a little research on the
Sure.
charge and makeup of that committee so that
Sure,
we can?
yeah, and we didn't have a finance committee.
There was
No,
not.
I don't believe so.
Okay, but there was
Which is
mention.
probably why we didn't get anywhere, right?
No, we didn't get anywhere because the chair of the from the selectmen didn't keep calling meetings. We actually had draft contracts and things that were doing pretty well. So that's part of the reason we'd like to do this.
Shots fired.
Well, even whatever the charge is, I
He's
know
not
that
on
there
here
was,
anymore.
there was sentiment from the Ag Commission too, that you guys thought it'd be appropriate that we have a planning board member involved as well.
Yeah, and obviously,
So,
the
If we're in the
AgCom, if they get
business of
this
starting
authority.
things, we can change things.
Yeah, we're not gonna act in isolation if it's,
Right.
and so.
All right, and I say, I'm sure Chase agrees, we don't have to wait for town meeting to vote in this new language to get about that business. We can meet as soon as it's
Yeah.
convenient. So Keith, you'll prod us on that?
Sure, be glad to. I just, if there's clarification, I know, and I tried to get the whole document up on the screen, but I had to cut and paste. In terms of what would be authorized under the statute, town council put together a section on powers and duties, and it's just excerpted here, that it would authorize the commission to buy, hold, manage, license, or lease land for agricultural purposes. Now, you're saying that you could do that with your commission, as opposed to the selectmen or some
My
other
understanding was the
entity?
commission would have to give us that charge. First of all, we'd have to identify which are ag properties, many of the properties in
Okay,
other
so town
measures.
meeting would have to identify which properties are subject to.
No, I
your-
believe the selectmen, but I
Selectmen,
defer to
okay.
council.
Either
Town
way.
meeting would give the AgCom the ability to manage those lands through the authority
Okay.
granted by the selectmen.
That's,
That's my understanding.
yeah.
It could be flawed.
Yeah, that I would think would be workable, yeah.
Yeah, we just need to council.
Yeah, we'll have town council double check that.
So it would remain under the control of the Board of Selectmen with AgCom as their appointee to manage.
We would have that additional option of
Right.
saying, here, you run it.
So you would take a vote to charge the AgCom with, say, doing the lease and managing the orchard or Church Meadows,
Or subsequent
or
lands, yeah. But retain the ability to say, no, we're not gonna do that if we don't.
So, okay.
But my question was right now under the conservation statutes, Conservation Commission can, they can acquire property, they can manage it, and with not so much as a by your leave to the Board of Selectmen. And we've usually had a closer relationship. Now that we don't have a close relationship with Conservation, because they need us, the Selectmen, to approve the deed, but that, I'm just wondering if it would, I think we'd want to make sure that there's some kind of, formal coordination between what AgCom is doing with respect to leasing lands and what the,
yeah, absolutely. I don't think
establishing what the
anybody in AgCom
expectation is.
anticipates operating in isolation. I
Yeah.
think they have to go through you guys to be given that,
Yeah.
but we meet once a month and can get some work done on this.
yeah.
But who's this to get council to look it over to make sure we all know what we're talking about?
Yeah, and you have access to them through us anyway.
And then get the working group meeting again too, so.
Until this is straightened out, we'll
Right.
continue with that.
I'd almost like to have an ad hoc member of Board of Selectmen involved in any of the conversations having to do with leases or care, custody, and control of any of the ag.
Currently, it's kind of what we have now, right? Except
Yeah,
it
but it's
hasn't
not
met.
working.
It hasn't met, it's not working, but, no, we can certainly do
And
that.
it never has.
And I see, right, it never has. So the idea of vesting the control, the care, custody, and control with AgCom, but perhaps designating a selectman member
Yeah.
to be engaged in that process, I think makes good sense. Then they can move those things forward because that's what they're really good at.
That's the intent, and it's open public meeting anyhow. I don't think we'd have a problem with having a selectman on there, but it's open public meeting, anybody can come. Or, in this case, you'd be able to decide not to come, and we could still have a meeting if you're too busy, which has been the issue.
Because it
frankly.
wouldn't be affecting a quorum.
Or getting something
Well,
done, which
7
is the
members,
voting member.
which one of you is a farmer?
Well, there is new revised language in here that says essentially if they can't find enough farmers, then you got a back door,
Chase can
right?
do it.
Trustee of the
He
family.
doesn't say so.
No, I didn't see that anywhere.
Well, I mean, we do have some, I'm not a farmer.
Brad isn't a farmer.
Right, and the composition right now is
Some of
what,
people,
3 or 4 farmers.
Yeah, four out of the 7
It's good
members
majority,
would
right,
need
yeah.
to be
Yeah, it's a majority.
farmers, yeah.
I had a quick question, if you don't mind, about the work plan components of this. And mostly I wanted to draw attention to the fact that the statute requires, or this bylaw requires a work plan, and there's probably a good opportunity to interface with Mike and the Master Plan Implementation Committee to make sure that whatever work plan that we develop, that you develop, is consistent with what Master Plan Implementation is doing and really sort of fits with Master Plan Implementation's overall goal of delegating out pieces and sort of touching base periodically.
Yeah,
So-
I see that as a benefit, because we were involved in some of the master's open space plan, but we commented on it, we weren't really integral to it.
Right.
And this would allow us to be integral to it, which I think makes sense for the town.
And then Master Plan I keep pointing to you, Mike, like you're the one that's gonna get stuck doing all this, but.
It will end up being that way.
Single-handedly.
Or it could be, Anna.
He's about to take a month's vacation in Italy, so let's not.
Now, not later.
But there is a good opportunity there, since, the bylaw specifically requires AgCom to put together a work plan to make sure that that's consistent with master plan.
Well, there's other projects as well. I mean, the Economic Development Committee came to us and asked for some statistics, so we're gonna do a survey to get some statistics around the commercial benefits and that sort of thing of agriculture. This formalizes that.
Okay. Any thoughts, concerns, questions, from anyone else? Relative to 14/J?
It would probably be helpful so that when we're at town meeting on October 30th, we can point to the game plan for proceeding with the agricultural
Relationship.
properties, because we know that there's some.
Yeah, well, if we're gonna pull
I know you're
the
gonna be
agricultural land
working
committee
group,
together,
yeah,
that could be
working,
an agenda item to figure
Yeah.
that out, how we'll
Yeah.
do this, should this pass.
Yeah.
I think that's about a 15-minute conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prod us, Keith, send out something about our
Yeah.
charge and past membership or whatever, and we'll get it scheduled, right, Chase?
So our intention is to put that on the warrant and then have discussion around the details.
Yeah. Well, I think we can have some discussion before town meeting, so we can
Right.
explain how you folks will all be linked in and
Right,
other
so
commissions.
that
will
we
be.
can answer the question, who's in charge of Nagog Hill Orchard?
Right. Well, right now, we know it's, this board, but proposed to change,
Or who's going to be?
maybe.
And the answer would be, should the selectmen so choose, so the authority would be given to the AgCom with some oversight from the selectmen.
Right.
Okay. So I did just have some concerns about, we have some resources available to us. I suppose that those resources certainly would be made available to, just in, department heads and whatnot.
And well, again, I think it's important to point out that as far as our reading of it is this gives us the opportunity to delegate that authority, which we currently don't have. We don't have to.
Right.
That's my understanding.
That much is true, because under the old statute, where there wasn't this language, you couldn't decide to have the AgCom be in charge of the property, because up till now, this law has not allowed that, so.
Okay. It didn't
This gives
exist as
them
far as
an
state
option,
laws.
yeah.
Okay. Article 15, or letter K.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sponsored by the letter K. Town bylaw amendment, which is town meeting procedure. So this, I think Joe and Chase and town moderator probably have something to say relative to this one, so.
And I put up on the board, the town council was asked to draft language based on some initial comments, and this is what he came back with, but we could, certainly looking for direction of what you want to have in there, town council.
I think what's there is what the moderator and the clerk could get together and send back as a possibility, but I'm glad you're here, Tim, because I want to know whether, you had sent me that email that said there's different ways of doing a town meeting, you could do it, or the town moderator could put a charge in for it. I guess what I'm trying to say, if we just wanted to take this one meeting and limit the amount of time that someone could speak, you could charge this meeting, and we could look at this later on, or would you rather proceed with this?
So you're empowered to do that now, correct?
Right, it's within the moderator's discretion to set reasonable time limits, rules, regulate the proceedings of the meeting, it's in the general law.
Just set those expectations right up front.
And in fact, the clerk and I did meet, and these are largely the things we talked about. I think at the time, I was leaning more toward, these are reasonable rules that I, as the moderator, could set. I wasn't contemplating a bylaw at that point.
Not codifying, okay.
I mean, right now, we don't have any time limits of any kind. And a bylaw kind of fixes things in stone as to what is possible. To me, kind of a reasonable middle ground is let's try asking the moderator to set the rules, and if that works or that doesn't work, then maybe we revisit the bylaw issue in the future. But to me, it's not necessary at this point in time, because we've never even informally imposed limits on presentations, limits on speakers, a number of, we've got some frequent flyers that like to, have a couple bites at the apple. I think with the, town meeting's agreement, I think we can kind of get our arms around it. And I don't think people are forgetting this, but, the last couple of town meetings went pretty late. However, you had Alumni Field, the library, the fire station, the smart sewer. You had some pretty weighty issues on the warrant. I think it was more a factor of what was on the warrant than people's desire to,
Equations.
Exactly. So, we'll see. This doesn't look like a, multi-night meeting to me. Well, that's the other thing. People said, geez, we want to end at a reasonable hour, and we'd rather come back in the night. There's a majority of people that, when I ask them, say, keep going. They say, look, we want to finish tonight. So, but we did come up with, maybe 11 o'clock is a reasonable hour, wherever you're at that point. We finish an article. If it's 11:01, we're done. We come back the next night. We can try different things. I just, I think we can try the informal approach before, we codify it.
And to Joe's point, with you ruling with a bit more of an iron fist, and setting that expectation when you open the meeting, letting people know that this is what we're doing, it allows for some debate and some conversation, and we can certainly have those conversations at our meetings, or we can have a separate meeting altogether where we can have
The
people.
selectmen get out of line, gavel them down.
It's unruly. It's very difficult.
Audience, take a microphone.
You good, Tim?
I'm sorry?
You good? Are you okay if I let Ed talk?
Oh, yeah, no.
Ed Mullen, 10 Griswold Road. Just curious if this could be a handout as opposed to a bylaw, just say code of conduct for the town meeting. And, if this is what the rules we're gonna follow, he's gonna say it, and we're gonna have 100 people show up after he tells everybody what the rules are gonna be, and
Well,
they're not gonna follow them.
If we wanted to test drive it, one way to do it would be to put whatever the proposed rules are that the moderator like to impose.
On the mailing?
Put it in the mailing. I mean, we did that with, we sort of had,
Sure, that too.
yeah, for a couple of the town meetings when we've had some procedural issues come up, and we thought it was important to advise people on how it was going to work, how we were going to go from to complete action here and go into the special and then come back and complete action. That it was all written up in the voter information packet that they had 2 weeks before town meeting. Yes, they were told once they got in the room, but they also had an opportunity to see it beforehand. Tim and I talked about it on the preview, pre-game show that we recorded. So if there were some guidelines on a trial basis that the moderator wanted to use for this town meeting, one way to do it would be for the moderator to draft those and put them in the booklet. Because the other thing is that even if you vote to do, even if, let's say you put this as an article and put it in the warrant, it doesn't apply to that town meeting.
No, it's gotta go to the
It's an
18th.
amendment
Yeah.
for a future town meeting. So,
I mean, that's always the case, though. We're always gonna be one town meeting behind the one that we voted in on.
with the exception though, I mean, if town meeting adopts the rule, if the moderator, during opening motions adopts a rule that we won't proceed beyond 10:30
Right, for that
unless
meeting,
11 o'clock, that meeting could vote it. Although what that meeting votes at 7, they can re-vote it,
Reconsideration.
10:59.
Well, and that was actually gonna be my one comment on Part C, the time limit for new business, is that this bylaw doesn't give town meeting the opportunity to reconsider if they wanna go to 11:15 or so.
All of those are reasons I think the approach we ought to be taking is, let's try it out through the iron fist of the moderator and the clerk, and, and have it duly, posted everywhere, in the hand, in the mailing, copies available on the table on the way in, as Ed suggested, on poster boards or whatever, just so, everybody knows what the rules of the
Let's
game
educate,
are.
yeah.
Especially in the mailing, because I would hate for someone to prepare comments and then realize that they only have 4 minutes to give 15 minutes worth of comments. I mean, not that that won't happen, but at least then we've set the expectation. Can all 3 of these be implemented by the moderator at the beginning of town meeting with the consent of town meeting?
It all falls under the regulation of proceedings.
Okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think the moderator needs town meeting's approval.
You don't.
Oh, no, okay.
But I'd be clear about what.
I mean, there's precedent. I mean, right? I mean, Charlie Kay, isn't it, I've heard stories
Even
about.
higher authority, yes, general laws, yeah.
If I may, short question. Amy, I know you've given a lot of thought to the structure of town meeting, and you've given me a lot of your inputs on how you think it should be run. What do you think of these changes?
First, I really like C, because I really think a lot of people kind of get a little bit turned off about coming and staying because of its length. And I think if people knew that it could go into 2 nights, or was 2 nights, people might be more apt to come, because they wouldn't feel like they'd have to stay for so long. I think that's part of getting more people to come and getting more people to participate. I guess I kind of been feeling on both sides of the fence about B. I definitely feel like we need to put some limits around people at the microphone, but I don't want to stifle people's right to speak. 5 minutes seems to be kind of an average of some of the things that I've researched and looked at. And I feel like if people would like to, if everyone has already spoken, I feel like it's the opportunity for someone to come back to the mic again if they have something new to say, or a different angle to speak on. I don't think they should just get one shot. So I guess I feel kind of mixed about things. I see pros and cons to both sides. Maybe we can try it, just see how it goes and then revisit it again.
I think we need to get Tim a much bigger gavel.
And then
A shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a gentleman who was really upset because he didn't feel like he was fully heard. And so I feel like that puts the town at risk a little bit. And then again, it's all how it's applied. There might be people who feel it's appliedly fairly to some people, but unfairly to other people. So sometimes having a very clear rule and expectation makes it fair for everybody all the time. I know that's not an answer.
No, that's good. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the input. I think we've all said it. I mean, I think we've got a mechanism right now. We've got, to Tim's point, master in the law. We've got the authority that he possesses as the moderator to, he can shut people off, he can impose time limits, and he can use his discretion, frankly, just like when he uses a 2/3 vote. He uses his discretion, which is part of the reason why we're with the marijuana moratorium. It puts into question whether or not you are able to hear 2/3 of the people versus 1/3 of the people. You know, so there's
Passed that in May,
codifying it.
so-
Pardon me?
We changed the bylaw in May, so I can declare a 2/3 vote without a count.
Right, but when we go to get certified by the AG, if they determine that,
No, not yet, no, yeah.
so, but.
I have a question for the moderator. Like, we put a time limit, or you put a time limit on 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Are you gonna keep track of that? Because I.
It's gonna have Millie in the front row. It's gonna have Millie in the front row with a stop sign.
It's an honest question.
At Concord Town
Well,
meeting.
what I'm trying to get at is,
Shot clock.
Hold on one second. Joe, let's,
just, I hate to be interrupted.
yeah, I was gonna say, let Joe finish his
I
comment.
don't get upset too often. All I'm trying to ask is that if it's a 4 or 5 minute type of thing you put down, is it gonna actually be timed? Because I can just see someone, you know, partway during the meeting, well, you gave them 7 minutes and I was keeping track of it, now you're only giving me 4. So
Yeah.
these are the kind of problems I actually see that come up.
I think if we continue with the video screen, there's the ability to have it counting down right on the screen. So maybe if somebody sees 30 seconds, they know I gotta wrap it up.
Yep.
And then it's fair for everybody.
Right.
So we have to incorporate LCTV in this conversation as well.
Right.
Eric, I know you had your hand up.
I just wondered if I could make a suggestion, another suggestion on top of these, that I don't think, probably this fall town meeting, we won't need the overflow room, but in the future, if there is an overflow room, that in order to move the vote, you have to go to the mic in the main auditorium. That would just be a suggestion.
But that's up to the moderator
The
again.
Peter
right?
Scott rule.
Yeah.
I know in the past, other moderators have actually taken something off the floor, right? Without having to go to the microphone at all.
Right.
Move the
We didn't
question.
always have the fixed
Yeah.
microphones. So that's a
Fairly
fairly
recent thing, yeah.
Yeah. Chief, I'm sorry, Chief had his hand up.
Scott Zinski, 18 Laura. There are several towns that use the shot clock. They, like Keith was saying, they put the clock up, and great for one of the kids that need community service time. They just staff the clock. Somebody starts to speak, you got 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever that time be, and set the timer. When it's done, you're done. And the moderator follows it. There are several towns that do that.
Obnoxious.
Then there's no prejudice.
No.
Thanks, Scott.
Subjective.
All right, I'm gonna take one more comment from Amy, and then we're
And
gonna
I think
move this
maybe
thing
there
along.
could be, after this November town meeting, there could be a review of how it went. Because one thing I sort of feel like I keep saying is, the town is growing and the business of the town is growing. And so, I know we had some really hot issues in the past, but I think we're gonna be seeing more and more of those. There's gonna be a lot of big projects and big ideas. And I think we really kind of need to change the way we run town meeting to deal with, all the issues that are coming up, now and in the future. There's a lot of great things happening, and I think we need the bylaws to help support them and the rules to help support it.
You're killing me, Katie. I said she was the last one.
However.
All right, go ahead, Katie.
Sorry, Katie Carew, Goldsmith Street. I was at the meeting last winter where there was initial discussion about changes to town meeting bylaws. And I know a bunch of people showed up, and there was a suggestion that there be more information, an education night or a warrant night before the actual meeting, so people could hash things out and get a better understanding of really what is going on, which might make the meeting more efficient. But, so I'm just throwing, that was an idea that was brought up. But the active, I'm also wondering about the process whereby these suggestions come forward. I just think that perhaps if there were citizen input as part of this process to help town meeting.
If I may, Katie, so part of what Joe and I are working on actually is we want to implement what we see as the low-hanging fruit for this town meeting, like a shot clock. But in the process, put together a survey to collect feedback from people at this town meeting about what it is they think will improve the process, so that we can then turn around, compile that information, and participate in that public process to potentially deal with bigger ideas, or maybe people don't like bigger ideas, maybe they like it the way it is, but to gather that public input. So I completely agree with you that public input and public participation is very important, and Joe and I both have pursued that as an objective.
And I think that to their credit, they've, done some reach out, and I know that you each solicited input from constituents, or, folks that you talk to, whether it be at the field or the reading in the farm, or whatever it happens to be, Thursdays. So these guys have brought a lot of that information, we've given them feedback, so this, because we
not the
each
end of the
talk to
process,
different people.
right?
Yeah, it's not in a vacuum.
But that is a good argument, though, for not incorporating these as bylaw changes as well, because we haven't gone through that public
Yeah,
process.
that's a good point. And like to your point, Diane is putting together the survey with some input from you all as well, right? So, all right. So it's a work in progress. Tim's gonna have a really big gavel.
Should get one of those big poles.
We're gonna include whatever language he provides in
Right, I
the
was gonna
mailing.
say, as far as the public process goes, where the moderator and the clerk are right now inviting public comment on suggestions, that if what Tim includes as his list is sort of the results survey says, so we're gonna try these out at the October town meeting, and because those who responded to the survey or whatever input we get is suggesting that we follow some set of rules and test drive them. So, but then you don't need to put them in a warrant.
Yeah, so get feedback post the meeting.
Just really quick.
Really?
Really
All
quick.
right.
Just, would the survey be online and not just available to people who are actually at town meeting?
Our intention was to get input from folks at town meeting, but also to make it available to whoever else wanted to provide it. But we're still very much working out the logistics of it.
Yeah, the town clerk does plan in the future of putting it online so anyone can fill it out.
Thank you for being quick. All right, so that was 15 other articles. So we spoke to 16, to your point, Chase. That's really all we have before us as far as accepting. I would definitely understand a motion this
Okay,
time.
my understanding before making the motion is that we're not going forward with what is listed as Article K here as an Article 2, correct? Is that the consensus of the board?
Correct.
Right. And that we need to change the language on E, but you already have a language change in place, Keith, right?
As amended.
Okay, so then I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the following articles onto the warrant for the October 30th, 2017 special town meeting, subject to approval as to form by council. A, zoning amendment, senior residential development. B, zoning amendment, inclusionary zoning. C, establish affordable housing trust fund, town bylaw, except statute. D, amend FY 2018 personal exemption amounts 100%. E, transfer of Cooper Farm parcels to town of Littleton with the aforementioned designation of A to the parcel identified as D. Is that what it is? Okay. F, Charlotte Hartwell property donation for West Lawn Cemetery. G, tax title properties of Butter Land Sales Conservation. H, supplemental FY 2018 capital items from available funds. I, zoning amendment, temporary moratorium, recreational marijuana. J, agricultural commission, amend town bylaw, except state statute.
So before we get a second on that, Keith, for A, B, and C, do we need to refer those back to planning board?
In the next motion, yeah, we have a procedural motion and what's listed as 4A.
Good, all right, so-
To do that, yeah.
And Article H was also as amended because we removed the library component from that. Is that correct?
Yes, for just two projects.
Okay. Is that a
So the
second?
motion has been made?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for all your input, folks.
Mark Grandmacher, Hartwell Ave. Did you take off the speed limits? That wasn't red.
We read it.
It's not in the A through J.
It was already approved. It was already inserted.
Yeah, it was inserted at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
But we're going to change the title.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah,
say
last meeting we had added the.
Oh, the half dozen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6
sorry.
articles went in at our last meeting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so for a procedural motions for planning board, road layout. So to Keith's point earlier, any of the zoning or planning board related articles have to be referred back to them, is that how it's? Okay, so, any discussion relative to that?
That's the first motion that's proposed. The other motion that I'm proposing is for you to schedule a public hearing on the proposed layout for McIntosh Way. You have already put an article on the warrant for McIntosh Way. Planning board has approved it at their last meeting. We can do it on October 2nd. We've already submitted the public notice to the newspaper, but I wanted to do it here. And I think that if you want to have a public hearing on Cooper Farm, that you ought to do it the same night.
Right.
You ought to do it on October 2nd as well, because we have a publication deadline of
22.
the 2nd, the 10th of October. So this will be October 2nd would be our last meeting before
That's the window.
before the booklet goes to the printer.
Let's do that.
Is there anything else on here we should be thinking about a hearing for? I mean, nothing jumps out at me. Recreational marijuana, does that require any?
Unless we want to do something with
Well,
those
they'll
first
have,
three.
the planning
I
board.
mean,
will
that's
have
part
a
of the
hearing
planning board.
on recreational marijuana.
Right, gotcha.
And the planning board's gonna have the A, B, and C there, right, 5, 6, and 7,
I'm not sure.
I was trying to find it.
on the 5th, October 5th?
So October 2nd would be the good time for your hearing on the Cooper
Sounds good,
Farm.
yeah, let's do that.
Do we need to include that in the motion or just do it?
You could, if you amended motion number 2
Yeah.
to public hearings on October 2nd at 7:30 for proposed layout, and 8 o'clock for Cooper Farm.
Cooper Farm transfer of ownership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's it
Just
say? Yeah,
transfer
transfer ownership of Cooper Farm parcels. Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion around those, folks? Entertain a motion.
I'll do it. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, to refer to the Planning Board for public hearings the following proposed zoning amendments requested by the Planning Board for the October 30th, 2017 special town meeting. 1, senior residential development, 2, inclusionary housing, and 3, temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments.
Second.
Moved and seconded, in discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, great. As far as motion 2?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule public hearings for Monday, October 2nd, 2017, at 7:30 PM on the proposed layout, are we including McIntosh Lane?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of McIntosh Lane as a public way, and
At 8 PM on transfer of ownership of Cooper Farm
parcels. Yep.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Opposed? It's unanimous? Okay, great, thank you. So up next is Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator. So we have project updates. I think you're up, Anthony. Welcome back.
I didn't go anywhere, but thanks.
Yeah, well,
Mr.
I
Chair.
haven't seen it.
So the architect that we selected to conduct the study, Allen Lee Associates, was really to look at the pressing needs of 3 departments here in town. Number 1 being the library, number 2 being the Council on Aging, and number 3 being Park and Rec. And when he was conducting the study, it was expanded to all departments, because when you look at the needs of one, you have to look at how we're functionally using the area that the other departments have. So he incorporated everybody within this study. He did questionnaires, which all department heads pre-filled out, and then he interviewed with them, or most of them, for a period of time to understand exactly what they need for space and what they do and how they function. Of that, Chris Stoddard and I met with him last Friday, and there is 4 options that really we see as coming out of this study. And just to go through them, with option one, assuming that the Mass Board of Library Commissioners reaches Littleton and we receive that grant, well, then we will have a new library. But we still have, in particular, two areas, Council on Aging and Park and Rec, where their space needs to be addressed. So we have a potential new library. Now we have still pressing needs, but now we have existing library space that we could renovate that space as well as the rest of the Shattuck Street complex to determine how everybody can get those needs met. That's option one. Option two is assuming that for whatever reason, funding runs out, what have you, we're not awarded that grant. So we still have those space needs and pressing needs of those three departments. So how can we do that? So one of the thoughts was to relocate town offices. And as an example, what relocate town offices, the former DCU building at 255 Great Road, that's approximately 25,000 square feet. If the town was to acquire that parcel, and then we renovated that building to meet the needs now of Town Hall, now we can have a lot more space, and I don't know the exact square footage now that the Town Hall occupies, which is the main part of this building, for use for expansion with the library, the seniors, the Council on Aging, as well as Park and Rec. That was option two. Option three, we have, again, the grant was not awarded, and we decide that we're not going to acquire other space, and we're going to make this existing complex, campus, work for us. That would mean that there would be several different additions to accommodate everybody's need, and then what that would be. So right now, what the architect is working on is the two things. He's working on the conceptual floor designs for each option, as well as putting together dollar amounts. So now that the town can truly understand how much it would cost for each option, and help us and help in the town to make a decision on which way to go in the future. Unfortunately, it's a lot more work than I think we all thought, so it's taken the architect a little bit more time. So I really don't expect him to have a report until the end of October.
A deliverable?
A deliverable, yeah. So, we're continuously gonna be staying on top of him, Chris and I, and meeting with him and trying to get progress. We're all very interested in it, as well as I think, the town's interested in the outcome of this study. So we're pushing it as quick as possible. It really is an important study that we need to take all the time to really get the answers that we're looking for. Oh, I'm sorry, and option four is, thank you. So option four is basically start over, acquire a new parcel of land, do a complete new complex for all town offices, put this house, which is interesting because this now could be available for affordable housing. Reuse. So that's an option too. So more to come. I wish I had more information, but.
Option four, just to spitball over here, so you're saying like if we have land right now that we could develop on, let's just use, we've always thrown Morgan property out there. So if we use the Morgan property and we built a complex, which met all the needs of everything, town offices and all the other.
It's about 70,000 square feet.
70? 70,000 square feet. Okay,
Ballpark.
so we built the Taj Littleton on Morgan property, and this could be repurposed into some sort of senior housing.
Possibility. It's an option.
So the town needs to start buying Powerball tickets.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're thinking, you're hopeful that end of October there'll be some deliverables that we would be able to have each option quantified with some preliminary sketches, drawings, something that we can.
We'll have some conceptual design floor plans as well as the dollar amount associated with each option.
Yeah, sure.
A couple of reactions. You're the conduit here, Anthony, so I'm not, directing any of this criticism with you in mind, but just in reviewing this brief summation, I'm a little, I understand we get, there's more work here than maybe was anticipated, and that the consultant needs more time, perhaps till the end of October. That part seems reasonable, but, I mean, frankly, these are 4 options we could have written before, without hiring a consultant. I don't think there's any real news here. So I hope that the next version we get includes, I know there's been a lot of individual meetings with departments, and I'd be very interested in seeing what their specific responses were. How do they perceive their needs, rather than just see that plugged into a series of proposals that kind of, allow individual members to kind of do some of our own thinking too. So I hope that information is presented to us. And also, I know in a couple of places in here, things such as the DCU building or affordable housing reuse here are for instances, but they take on a life of their own if we get specific there. And I think in the safer option 2, it would be more appropriate to say, this option, rather than just saying, by example, we could go to this building. Well, if we're going to do that option, then it would require a comprehensive analysis of all potential available sites in town. Similarly, Chuck pointed out, affordable. Yes, is affordable housing a possible reuse for the Shattuck Street complex? Sure, but so are a lot of other things. So I think you put those words in there, and all of a sudden, I'm going to be at the post office tomorrow, and somebody's saying, so affordable housing is going into the Shattuck Street, and we're buying DCU building. That's what happens. So.
Right, it's just an example. Even DCU is an example that happened to come up. It's right in the common area.
Just because it's available currently, and I think that if let's say option 2 is the way.
It finds its way into a report, then it's gone more than just being an example. It's,
Well, because it's available, we're able to look at it.
I understand that.
But
I understand.
if the town were to do something, let's say we decided, as the Board of Selectmen, that we want to go full steam and buy the DCU building and move town offices up to the DCU building. We wouldn't just be able to say, okay, owner of the DCU building, we want to buy your building. It would have to be a state bid process.
Yeah,
Well, not only that, I would say it would have to come at the result of saying, we've done a comprehensive analysis of all properties in town. Why is that one all of a sudden?
Absolutely, I'm just saying that we would have to open it up and.
And yet by name it keeps popping up, which, I just think it's not serving our interests to keep referring to it as a specific example.
I would say, though, that looking at a specific property does help us pin down things like the opportunity cost of putting a municipal building in a property that was otherwise going to be paying property taxes. So by looking at something specific, now we are able to pin down what that opportunity cost is.
For that building.
For that building, but it's an
if,
illustrative
for
example.
instance, following that logic, then, okay, you look at that, there's not enough parking there. But there is at Donlands, so why don't we say, if, for instance, Donlands was available? Well, now you've started the rumor that Donlands is available, it may be more available than the DCU building at this point. It certainly has more parking.
I like having an example. I appreciate,
Well,
I think it just helps people visualize the possibility by showing an example, and it's just an example.
The semantics are very important, though, that option 2 is considering an alternative building for office space. One of the current options could be ... rather than option 2 is DCU building.
Well, when you only give one example, you're putting a thumb on the scale. I think that's fine. I'm just,
Yeah.
So, putting our thumbs on scales, let's move over to field assessment, and then,
Can I ask
Yeah,
one,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
at the expense of, more time? Next meeting, could we have a list of the cost categories that the architect is considering? Because I want to make sure that when we're looking at these costs, we're not just looking at the cost of, for option 4, for example, building the building, or for option
Anyone.
renovation. Yeah, exactly. Each one of these can have different cost categories, not limited to the opportunity cost associated with property taxes, the downtime necessary to rent additional space, right? Imagine if we renovate this whole space, well, what's COA gonna do for that period of time? So, right, so I wanna make sure that the costs that we're looking at are comprehensive, or as comprehensive as possible. And I think the best way to do that would be to look at the categories of costs, not the associated dollar values, but the categories of costs that the architect is going to consider for each alternative, which at this point in the process, I would imagine is a fairly straightforward process for him to put together. And so that we can look at it and say, oh, no, we're missing this, or, make sure we're all on the same page before we see a draft report and go, there's a big glaring
You have to
hole.
renovate the
Right.
whole space to put 70,000 square feet worth. Or if the library goes on the hill, and we have to renovate that space, there's a real cost in renovating that space.
Every one of
to make
those
it accommodate.
has real costs,
Yeah, right.
they're all substantial.
Yeah.
So to get a comprehensive economic analysis, we want to know what the substantial components of all of the alternatives are.
Yeah, you're right, they all come with different costs, and speaking to Alan, the cost of building new is $1 amount per square foot. The cost of renovation is another dollar amount. And these are dollar amounts that are determined through DCAM. So,
Those are actually the costs that I'm least concerned. I would expect that the architect should be able to cite those numbers almost off the top of his head. I'm more concerned about the secondary or less obvious costs that the town will ultimately incur through each of these four options.
Right.
And having that menu ahead of time means that we're all in the same, we all agree these are the sets of costs that we're gonna pay attention to. So if you could push them to have just the categories for, a couple of weeks from now, I think that would be helpful.
And then from that, we could probably involve Bonnie in a conversation, so that as we start to quantify, we can start looking at, and Steve and Bonnie have done a great job for us to kind of look out 10 years, 20 years, look at what that exclusion would cost us, what can we afford. It starts to give us a much better view into the future and find out.
And
If-
furthermore,
if
I
and
think
when.
we could incorporate Sam, Pam, and Alicia in that too, to make sure that those ancillary costs that each of you is responsible for are accounted for in the total assessment. To make sure we're getting a full account.
Any comments from the board? Jean had her hand up.
The 70,000, I'm sorry, Jean Sill, 53 Washington Drive. The 70,000 square feet, that's for 3 departments?
that's for the
All
entire
inclusive.
complex.
The entire,
That would
everything
be
that's here.
for
Everybody.
Town offices,
Town
park
offices,
and
library,
rec,
park and rec,
council,
yes.
and, so what is the space now for all 4 of them?
Total right now is close to about 70,000.
So when we build something new, that's what we'll get, what we have now.
I think that's what the study will help us identify. Right now, when you look at our existing square footage of 70,000, some of that square footage, though, may be able to be reduced based on the wall is 3 feet thick here as opposed to if we build new, it's different. So I think all of that has to be looked at.
So basically, you're trying to, if we would leave here, we would build something almost the same size as what we have now.
No, we still want to meet the space needs for the next 15 years.
Okay, so that 70,000 is not,
Again, that's just an estimate on the 70,000.
Erica.
Along the same lines, I was wondering if there was somewhere, a list of what each department space needs are, and under each option, are those space needs assumed to be the same? If we do, option 1, are we still considering the same amount of space for each office as if we're looking at option 4?
I think until we get something more comprehensive, it's gonna be really difficult to answer some of those questions.
I think
Right? I'm
the
not
dri-
trying to put you off,
yeah.
I just think that.
It is difficult, but I think that, keep in mind, the real drivers for more space are the 3 departments that I mentioned. The library, council on aging, as well as park and rec.
Mr. Rambacher.
Mark Reinbacher, 205 Portwell. So the question I would have is, how can we proceed to know what we need going forward if we don't know what the sizes of those departments will be? I mean, I would have guessed that's why we asked all the departments what their needs are. Shouldn't we know now before we're building or trying to decide say the council on aging needs X and the library needs Y and park and rec.
Yeah,
needs
Anthony doesn't
Z.
know that right now, but
No.
the consultant certainly is going to deliver that to us. That's what he's been tasked with doing.
But if we need that before you can do those A, B, C, and D options, right? Because you don't know how big of a building you need for any of these, right?
Well, that's
Someone made
certainly-
the assumption that the DCU building is big enough
Hold on
for
a
the
second.
town offices, right?
I was actually just about to say that actually goes exactly to Paul's point, that the idea that we're identifying the DCU building as a potential alternative may be a red herring because it may not conform with the physical needs of all of those.
But that's all gonna be determined by the architect, though, it's just not done yet.
Right.
Right.
But that's not determined by the architect, that's determined by the survey of the
Well,
department you did.
That's what I meant, him doing the survey, he'll come back and say,
The data will tell the story, right? So,
When we get that report in late October, the very information that Mark's referencing that we have talked about in various forms should be in there. You know, what the departments are looking at, what their needs, what kind of space will accommodate those needs, no matter what form it takes, in this building, outside of this building, or wherever, right? That's one of the deliverables?
That's what we're counting on.
Okay.
But my point is, if you're doing those A, B, and C, D, A, B, C, D options, you've already made the determination before you can start those options. You already have to know about how much space you're looking at.
so maybe he
before you
does,
can go
Mark,
through
and we
those.
just didn't get enough information from him.
I mean, I guess I don't necessarily agree with you, Mark, that we can consider, with the exception of option 2, which does specifically name the DCU building as an alternative, if we go down the path that Paul has suggested, where we look at it as an abstract alternative that already exists, based on the needs that are determined, right? This survey goes from, first, what do we currently have? What do we currently need? Then what are we gonna need, what's 20 years in the future? 15 years in the future. Okay, now based on those three, how can we satisfy those needs based on options 1, 2, 3, and 4? So you're right that we need to identify the physical spaces, but I don't think that those physical spaces determine or the options don't determine the physical spaces determine the options.
Correct.
But if we move the library out, and we're clearing up 16, 18,000 square feet, we don't even know if that's enough space, right? Or if we're gonna have to build something else.
You're
So
absolutely
you can't say that
correct. We
option
don't
A is a
know.
valid option
Right.
as its own.
And that's what he's
say.
showing us, Mark, and that's why he needs to quantify, to Chase's point earlier, if that is what goes forward, and we build on the hill, and that's vacant.
We don't have enough information.
We don't.
No,
We have to quantify, what is that gonna take in order to renovate? So let's say that does offer enough space, because now we just freed up 20-some odd thousand square feet, and that gives us enough space based on the information that he's given us. Now we have no idea what that number is gonna be to renovate that space, to get us viable.
I'm not even
And
talking
that's when we need to look at this whole thing holistically. We need to look at the whole package to find out if it's $13,000 or $15,000 to build in the slope site. What is it gonna cost to renovate that space in order to make it work for the other needs that we have? And to your point, is that enough? You know, maybe the schools end up buying Indian Hill, and here we are naming spaces again, but we don't know yet until we get all of the data back from this guy. I mean, I'm scared, personally, I'm scared about what the cost of renovating that space is going to be if and when the library moves onto the hill.
But I also think that incorporating option 1 here, library goes over to the hill. Option 1, there's still the possibility, option 1, we determine it's not viable. We need, I don't know, 40,000 square feet. Okay, well, then option 1 is entirely off the table as it's constructed right here, because option 1 is a new building and use that space. And maybe we do need to reevaluate, okay, we need to have option 1A, which is library over there, renovate here and add on 20,000 square feet. But the data's just not there yet to evaluate that. So I think we need to be a little bit flexible.
I
And I think without the data, we can't, this is a moot conversation. I'd like to move on, so I'm gonna close that portion. Next one we have, Anthony, is the field needs study.
Fields needs, so that's finally coming to an end. And so, Gail Soches has been in town, he's met with the school department, he's met with Park and Rec. He's met with the youth groups, so he's done a lot of work. he's to the point now where we're hoping to have a draft, or the plan is to have a draft September 14th, and then present something at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, the final report with some conceptual drawings there on the 25th. So that's coming to the finish line, at least as far as the report.
Very similar study with recreation and field needs. Okay. So we'll see something end of the month-ish.
It'll be the 25th, there'll be a presentation by the architect who, Gale Associates, who selected to do the study.
Is there any plan to also present this at school committee or anything like that, or are we just gonna present it once?
The good thing about the 25th is the FinCom will be here, Park and Rec will be here, so there's 3 boards
Okay.
right
School
here.
committee. It's a joint meeting.
Oh, okay.
FinCom, school, select.
So it's a great opportunity to present that one in front of all the boards.
All right, the alumni update? Stole some of
You
your
did a great job
Oh,
earlier.
geez.
I don't know if there's anything to add to that.
Well, jet field's underway. That's
Jet
the
field.
big addition, right? So right now, they've moved a lot of the attention on the jet field, bringing a lot of loom in there. The irrigation's in place, right?
Not yet. So what they're working on right now is actually sifting through the old alumni dirt has to be sifted to screen to the 3/4 inch. So they're doing that now, actually at DPW, and they're starting to bring that dirt back. So if you look,
Screen loom.
the screen loom back. So if you look in front in the plaza area, they've been bringing truckloads there, so that's groomed. And then the irrigation system has to go in, and then the grass will go in last. So then they're moving on to jet. The reason why they've kind of waited to the end of jet, because they're staging that as a parking area for all the construction too, so.
Okay. Good, so hopefully they're gonna crack that, unlike what happened over next to the middle school. That was a staging area during the renovation of the middle school, and the reason we just had to put money back into that is because that was like a parking lot, literally, like jet's being used right now. So I would recommend that if the construction meeting is Wednesday, just ask them to make sure that it's gonna drain properly and that the field's been cracked and put the proper drainage in.
Yeah, the good thing is we've been monitoring ever since the drainage system has been in for a while for both alumni and jet. And, and we've had some pretty good rainstorms in between. So we're constantly going over there, seeing how the ground is taking the water. And so far, everything is great in both locations.
Okay. Just we had to go back and fix a problem that we created at the middle school, so hopefully we can avoid. having to go back and fix,
Duly noted, and we'll pass that along.
Awesome, thank you. Keith, you're all set with updates?
All set.
Okay. Lastly, item 6 is minutes approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is a meeting you were not in attendance at.
I hear you did a great job.
Yeah, well,
Very efficient.
I will
Certainly
draw
got
you.
out of here before 9:30.
I was just gonna say, I'll draw your attention to page 7, adjournment time of 8:15.
Yeah, you didn't have to listen to yourself, so.
Oh, I did. Yeah, we listened to him. In any event, I will move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of August 21st, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, folks. Our next scheduled meeting is the 25th of September.
Draft letter, it's still got
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Could I have,
Actually,
just, there's one thing that I wanted to mention, and I want to call out Joe Knox, because he was here 10 years ago tonight, which was my first
Was it?
Oh,
day
this
on
was
the job. Yeah.
10 years?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Yeah.
The 10th.
Yes, my first day on the job was the 11th. The Board of Selectmen's vote was on the 10th, and I asked them to make that my anniversary date, because I didn't want to have September 11th as the day.
I had made note of that. It's in my phone, not in my paper notes, and I apologize. I was gonna have a cake and everything.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Easy to say now, right? So, happy anniversary to Mr.
Thank you.
Bergman, 10 years with Littleton. Thank you very much, Mr. Bergman. Now I'll take a motion to
Still a
adjourn.
great ride.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much, folks. September 25th is our next meeting. Thank you.